America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a special guest today, and Preston, would you like to introduce them?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My mic on? I will. Thank you. Well, welcome to the Northwoods. And so today I'd like to invite to the podium a longtime member of this region, a longtime member of certainly the Red Cliff, who have populated this region of the state of Wisconsin for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So join me in welcoming Vice Chairman of the Red Cliff Band, Rick Peterson.
Okay, we don't get a sound here, but I talk loud anyway. First of all, I want to say that because it's under 40 degrees, I put on my special attire here today, my Green Bay Packer colors. And I'd like to welcome the board to our area here. I'm happy to see that committees and boards and individuals in your positions are actually come up here. One of the I've told multiple governors. Oh, let me back up a little bit. I was a tribal chairman of Red Cliff for several years, and so as chairman, I served under a few different administrations. I'm now the vice chair. I decided to downshift a little bit in my old age. But one of the things I used to tell Governor Walker, and I still tell Governor Evers, is that we are the state above Highway 8, and a lot of times we are I'm not going to say forgotten about, but as we all know, everything, the hub of the politics and administration and everything else is south of Highway 8. So we appreciate you coming up here. One of the things I'd also like to say, I was just telling, first of all, I'd like to thank Secretary Cole for the invite. Yeah, it means a lot as a tribal leader to be able to come and speak in front of you all. I was just mentioning a little story to the secretary. When I became chairman in 2017, the Lake Superior fishing agreement between the state, Bad River, and Red Cliff had expired, and we were still in the negotiations moving forward. And Secretary Thiede came up to Red Cliff, and we spoke. And the first thing I told him is said, as a tribal leader, I don't consider you an adversary. I said, we're not going to agree on everything. I said, but we still got to work together. I said, and it's a story that he told and probably still does. I said, think of us as, two individuals in a canoe. I said, you got one oar, I got the other oar. We're either going to paddle together and move forward, or we're going to paddle against each other and go in circles. This is the attitude that I've always brought to the table. I worked in corporate America for many years out in Los Angeles. I was one of the original employees hired at SpaceX. So I worked, I got a lot of experience. And the one thing that, I'd like to ask this board today is when making these decisions, the one thing that I've always proven, one thing that's always proven that worked is a two-way street on respect. If you respect the individuals that you're negotiating with and they respect you, amazing things can happen. After I became chairman, we closed out, we came to an agreement shortly thereafter. And you guys have an awesome responsibility. And I wish you the best in everything you do. And again, I just want to welcome you and everybody here. Thank you for coming today. And I think my 5 minutes are up. Thank you.
To our meeting. Please know that there is sometimes a delay in the broadcast and it's easy to talk over each other. Make your computer or tablet is set up and running and you are able to turn your mute on and off when you are not talking. I will ask you to mute if there is any background noise. Board members, please ask for the floor when you want to speak and get recognized. Also, motions will be made slower so Ashley can make sure who made them. Remember to state your name when doing so. Ashley also will interpret the meeting if she is not certain as to who is making the motion, etc. Staff presenters via Zoom, please make sure your Zoom is muted and your video is turned off until I announce your item. Once your items are completed, please exit the meeting. Our meetings are televised live via YouTube, and we especially want to welcome and thank our viewers for tuning in. Public testimony is welcome at each and every regularly scheduled NRB meeting. The transparency of our meetings and the ability for the public to testify or comment to us is the benchmark for how this board has operated for over 50 years. This meeting, we have public appearances via Zoom and in person. I would like to give special thanks to our technical and communications team, Chris Tall for Zoom, Scott Miller for live webcast, and Doug Foreman for sound. Jeff Marginal and Chris Welsh for ensuring all board information is available online for the public, and the DNR's Office of Communications for streaming this meeting on the department's YouTube channel and for managing press releases, newsletters, social media, and more, all to keep the public informed. Carly Zimmerman is our Wisconsin Conservation Congress liaison, who helps us work with our longstanding partners dealing with our natural resources. Law enforcement, Nick Majewski, Casey Krieger, and his warden team. Well, it goes without saying, your staff's ability to protect our resources, along with our board members, staff, and public safety speak for itself. I would like to thank DNR Secretary Preston Cole, Deputy Secretary Sarah Berry, Assistant Deputy Secretary Steve Little, Chief Legal Counsel Cheryl Heilman, and all department staff for their participation today in making presentations. Your time is valuable, and we will respect that. Special thank you to Deb Benson and James Jacques for coordinating the tour of the area. Lastly, would also like to thank the 2,200 permanent employees and 1,477 limited term employees of the Department of Natural Resources for their continued commitment and tireless work for the public. And any questions, board members? I do have one comment to make. Recently, somebody that this board is very familiar with, Ralph Fritsch, has passed. For those that weren't aware of that, I've worked with Ralph for over 20 years on different issues, and sometimes we agreed, sometimes we didn't, but Ralph said that's all part of the sausage making process. So little respect for Ralph Fritsch. And with that being said, let's move on. Ashley, oh, by the way, forgot. Nobody knows Ashley. Ashley is our new board liaison. And look forward to working with you in the future. And I know this is kind of rough, this first meeting, but you'll get it down. So. So Ashley, can you take the roll?
Here.
Here,
Here.
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 Here. She should. You're here, right? She mentioned your name.
Oh, that. You threw me off because the first time since I've been on the board, my name wasn't listed first on the roll. I'm here.
I do have to do it again. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Everybody's here. Approve the agenda for September 28, 2022.
Any changes? No changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Move to approve. Second.
all right. So consent, all those in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
I move the consent agenda number 2, A, B, C, and D. Second.
All in favor,
Aye.
opposed?
No discussion, obviously, right?
No. Motion carries. All right, 4A. Request adoption of board order CF 1219, proposed rules affecting chapter NR 162 related to streamlining, updating, and improving clean water fund program processes and procedures. Matthew Markham, Chief Environmental Loans Section. Is Matthew here today?
Good morning. Yes, I'm joining virtually.
Zooming, I think.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Matthew, are
Matt.
you there?
Matt, I'm not sure the in-room sound is working right now. Please hold.
Will do.
You made a motion to approve it. I'll put a motion before we'll approve it, just for discussion.
Do I have a second?
I'll support that.
Any discussion?
Preston, you think if that doesn't hook up, you got anything to add on that? I don't. I read the green sheet, looks like we're ready to discuss it.
I talked with Matthew and had a couple of questions for him and they were well answered.
Okay,
President, I'm not that answer any questions.
I have
You
no
do have Matt on the Zoom. We're having a technical issue getting his audio and video connected. We're taking a look at it right now. I can't promise that it will be fixed immediately though.
Does anybody have any questions?
We can move forward.
Yeah. Any questions?
well, there's a motion on the floor. Let's have a vote. We can move on. Call,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That's the best
All right.
presentation you've had in a long time.
Preston's been known to do that before too. So sometimes when we cross highway 8, highway 2, we've done it. So staff's working on it.
Life new technology.
All right. Moving on to 4B, scope statements. Request approval of the statement of scope for emergency board order DG 0722E and board order DG 0822 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice for DG 08 and 22. And notice of submittal of proposed rules to legislative clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting NR 812 relating to allowing for the use of new cement formulations for the construction of water wells. Marty Nessman, are you going to be available?
Hello, can you hear me?
Put it on table, motion.
I'm here.
No, the
second.
room's not hearing you, Marty. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay. We can come back to those.
Is anybody from private water here in the audience?
Um,
I can address that. Actually, any speakers available here in the building?
Not at the moment. For party.
Yep, I see him.
Come on up. Fill us in. This is called bringing people off the bench.
That's right.
How strong is our bench?
Good morning. Gail Good, Division Administrator for Environmental Management.
So can you give us we've all read,
Go ahead.
all read the scope statement. Can you give us a little administrative insight on the reason for the scope?
Yeah, I sure can. Thanks for asking. So essentially the manufacturer of one type of cement that has been used, that the manufacturer has changed that to something else. So we need to be able to change the rule in order to support that change so that that can be used by rule in Wisconsin. There was a public hearing on this. We did have one comment in support of this rulemaking.
Are we taking away the ability to use other types of cement?
Essentially, at some point, the type that has been used in the past will no longer be available. So we need to make this change because the folks who need this type of cement will not be able to use it they won't be able to find it any longer.
Okay, but it's still would be legal for them to use it. We're not
Currently,
banning that type.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Motion on the floor, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good job.
You're batting 1,000 now.
Yeah, bench was pretty good.
Next one in person.
Request approval of the statement of scope for board order WW 0622 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice for board order number WW 06 22 and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the legislative clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting chapters NR 320, 323, 326, 328, and 329 related to structures in navigable waterways. Kyle McLaughlin, Waterway Team Coordinator, and he is here.
Good morning, Chair Kazmierski and distinguished members of the Natural Resources Board. My name is Kyle McLaughlin, and I'm the Waterway Team Coordinator with our Waterways Program with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I'm here today to request authorization to proceed with rulemaking efforts as outlined in proposed scope statement WW 06-22, generally related to structures placed in or over navigable waterways. As you may recall, in August, this scoping statement was on consent agenda for a preliminary public hearing request in order to proceed and continue to move forward with potential rulemaking efforts. The department held a preliminary public hearing on this scoping statement on August 18th, 2022. And as a result of that public comment period and hearing did receive 2 comments in regards to our proposed scoping statement. And after careful review and consideration of those comments with our program legal attorneys, we believe our scope statement sufficiently addresses the comments that were presented to us. This scope statement, This scope statement is considering 5 existing administrative codes and largely seeks to align the existing administrative codes with conflicts with state statute that have occurred since the initial establishment of these administrative codes. Generally speaking, these administrative codes relate, as mentioned, to different activities collectively referred to as structures in or over navigable waterways. We believe that it's appropriate to consider all of these administrative codes together collectively because the standards for review are consistent across these different activities and emanate from similar sections within state statutes, chapter 30. The impetus for this rulemaking effort, as mentioned, is largely based on updating these administrative codes to align them with statutory requirements. There are a number of different regulated activities and tiers of review that are specifically addressed in state statute that are in conflict with existing administrative codes. So, excuse me. The excuse me, these rulemaking efforts seek to update our technical standards for different activities that are addressed in state exemptions as specified in state statute. And also seeks to update technical standards for common regulated activities, which are addressed under our general permitting and individual permitting authority. Examples like design requirements for erosion control structures, for instance, is an example of statutory criteria, administrative code criteria under the general permitting process that we've observed through implementing our existing regulations, whereby our trusted conservation partners have recommended different design standards based on adaptations to things like changing climatic conditions along the landscape. So this administrative code update will seek to update those technical standards for those types of activities. Another area of statutory change that has occurred is relative to our general permit development process. Our existing administrative codes identify a number of general permit standards for different regulated activities across these codes. Meanwhile, statutory changes have established a new process for the department to develop general permits and review general permits on a rotating 5-year basis. Our existing administrative codes don't presently reflect those statutory requirements. So this effort will allow us to bring those administrative code standards in alignment with statutory requirements. Lastly, we're seeking to, as part of this rulemaking effort, explore the establishment of technical standards related to erosion control practices on the Great Lakes and the placement of solid piers on Great Lakes and other similarly situated water bodies. Our existing administrative code does not address these types of technical criteria. And as a result of recent high water experienced in the Great Lakes and the demand for those types of practices, there are opportunities for regulatory efficiencies to be found through the establishment of administrative code standards. The department recognizes that this rule package has a broad set of stakeholders that are likely interested in the outcome of these rulemaking efforts. As a result of that, the department has reached out to a broad set of stakeholders who we believe are representative of the diverse interests that would be interested in the outcome. So we would lean on this technical advisory group to help guide department rule drafting efforts as we move forward in rule development. Additionally, the rulemaking process has a robust public engagement strategy built into it to allow for members of the public to engage in the review of the technical standards as we would seek to draft proposed language. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board?
Can you back up one slide, please?
Yes, sir.
When you say private committees, are you talking about private landowners? And a private, you say that you're a technical advisory group.
Right.
What about construction workers on the water, dock people, boat shelter people? Are they in the technical group? Or are they?
Sure. So the private permittees that we've identified, or the representatives to the private permittees that we've identified, include, as the names on your sheets, Paul Kent and Jane Landretti, who are actively engaged in the waterway regulatory process and have represented private permittees, businesses, municipalities, and other interest groups. Certainly, as you're recognizing, this is a very broad rule package, and there are stakeholders like dock manufacturers and installers, as you've identified, that may not be distinctly represented by any one trade association. So we would seek feedback from the technical advisory group on strategies that we might implement to allow participation, more broadly than potentially their interests represent.
Well, help me out here a little bit, because you've got some nonprofits stacked up pretty high to monitor this process. And you've got a real association and see some riparian owners, which may or may not be for any type of construction at all on a lake or body. And you've got private permittees. So I just needed to drill down a little bit here and what exactly, how many people is it 1 out of 6 from that left side of your screen, or is it that person represent the landowner that wants to build a structure, have an erosion control on their lake? Does it represent the manufacturers, the construction workers of docks, pilings, stuff like that? What exactly does that state?
On the private permittee side,
Correct.
typically they're representing the private riparian landowners that wish to build a particular structure on a water body, or their contractors who've been engaged in permitting discussions with the department in pursuing those actions.
So that be one person, or is that just the group that you're going to draw?
So that designation is represented by 2 people, Jane Landretti and Paul Kent, who are
So I'm not familiar with them.
looking to, I'm sorry. Yeah, so they're attorneys with Stafford and Rosenbaum out of Madison, and have represented those stakeholders, in the past for permitting within navigable waterways.
Could you send me the list of those?
I certainly can. Yes.
Thank you.
Terry.
Kyle, thanks for your presentation. Question for you. You mentioned in your slide presentation, develop Great Lakes shore protection standards for Lake Michigan and other similar lakes. What's the other similar lakes?
So the shore protection standards specifically would refer to the Great Lakes and outlying waters, which have a specific statutory definition to include Green Bay, Sturgeon Bay, and other connected bays. I think the Fox River up to De Pere Dam is also included in that list of outlying waters. The solid pier standards, as they're proposed to be explored and developed, relate to the Great Lakes and other similarly situated water bodies, which include those outlying waters, but also the Fox River, Lake Winnebago, and the Mississippi River, where that type of pier construction is common.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Bill.
Yes, and as you bring this eclectic group of stakeholders together, is the goal for this rule package going to be restrictive or empowering?
Sure, glad that you asked. So our goal as part of opening these 5 rules is to address those places in statute where our existing rules are not in alignment with statutory requirements. Secondarily, as we have these rules open, we'd like to seek efficiencies across these rules. There are many standards located in each of them that are consistent to the activity. So there's room for administrative efficiency. As part of this effort, we're also seeking to explore opportunities where we might be able to find regulatory efficiency, for example, by way of looking at our technical standards a little bit differently, and potential for broadening eligibility for certain low risk regulated activities under lower tier programmatic reviews. But those details would be left to the technical advisory group and department drafters once we're given authorization to proceed with drafting efforts.
So I think I heard leaning toward empowering.
Where we may be able to do that, we're looking for those opportunities.
Marcy.
Hate to do this to you, but can you go back to the flow chart? Obviously, this is
Maybe.
or maybe not. This is significant. There's going to be a lot of interest watching this go forward. So in conversations this summer at my favorite lake, there was some concern that it's already been done, that there's somehow secretly taking care of all of this. Just want to verify that we are at the beginning stages when a scoping statement happens, correct?
That's correct. We have not begun drafting any language for the proposed rule effort and have only identified the goals as outlined in the scoping statement as presented to you today.
Okay. And again, because this is so far reaching and touches on so many places that people feel near and dear to, the outreach, I think, has to be just, over the top as you go through this process, because the time frame for this, Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, it'll be at least a year.
30 months.
30 months. Okay. So I hope that we just really, everyone involved, continues the good participation. I agree that the number of interest groups, we've already heard from Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, that they be brought in early and often as those things move forward. Because again, this is going to be really significant, and it goes both ways, right? It's the protection of the resource and the technical standards of how things are constructed, how they evolve, what's allowed, what's not allowed, really is huge in this state. So I wish you well, and just hope that everything gets pulled in early on and we come away with a really good rule.
Thank you.
Kyle, you get the sense from the board hesitancy in terms of keeping this process open, one, so that they can see it. It wouldn't be prudent for us to wait the 29th month and bring this topic back. Can you identify the milestones and when they occur in the timeline to update the board on a regular basis as to where you are? It could be after public meetings, report back what those discussions were. It could be after the technical teams has gathered and report back. Can you lay out the timeline for the board? Come back periodically prior to the 30-month process.
Certainly. So as is shown on the screen, there are various steps in the rulemaking process identified on the left-hand side. We're at that scoping stage presently. Upon approval to proceed with efforts, we would begin drafting rule language and engaging our technical advisory group through essentially June of next year, where we would hope to then have draft language available to be able to conduct our economic impact analysis. And I believe that at that time, the board has the opportunity to weigh in on what the rule package, what the more complete picture, if you will, of the draft language looks like. After that economic impact statement, we're able to go back and make changes to the draft language and engage with our technical advisory group for final follow-up, final drafting, if you will, at which point it would proceed with the external review and revision, the public comment period, the outward facing public comment period after that economic impact analysis and the public comment associated with the economic impact analysis. So there's various checkpoints throughout the process, depending on how the drafting goes and takes shape, to where this would come back to the Natural Resource Board for additional consideration or look.
Would you see at least 3 opportunities to update the board prior to it coming?
I believe that is the case at each of those steps. Yes.
I would like to extend the opportunity to use at least 3 other opportunities prior to coming to the board for a final vote, as well as it may be appropriate for you to bring individual representatives that you deem appropriate or board members may want to hear from at those updates. It shouldn't just be you, it should be a member or 2. I'm not saying you have to bring all 20 people here, but I think it'd be important for members of your group, your committee, to appear before to answer questions that the board may have as well. Because you talk about these types of rules, it gets everybody nervous.
Yes.
And we want to make sure folks don't get nervous.
Doc's not.
I'd like to just expand a little bit. I think Marcia's on point here. This is going to be a big one. You talk about water, you talk about everything in the state. And this is going to have both sides coming in at you from all angles. I do not believe your technical committee is fair. I believe it's slanted. And if you want to put a room full of people that have a certain viewpoint, you got it. I think if you truly want to dig down and get come to some compromise at this thing, you fill that technical advisory group with people that actually want to do something to the water and shoreline. You know, riparian rights are statutorily in a lot of places, and this is where the rubber meets the road with regulation. This is a hot issue in northern Wisconsin, all over, but hot up here. You don't have that. You have an attorney from Madison that represents the people that lawsuits. You don't have landowners on that I can see. I haven't seen the list of people yet, but clearly that list is slanted to one viewpoint. And I think you're making a mistake, because what's going to happen is it's going to boil down the road. It's going to come back in front of this board. And Preston, I applaud you for bringing it 3 times. That might help, but it hasn't helped. It hasn't happened before. You know that. It comes down to the final hour, and it's an S show. You want to avoid that. You change your technical advisory committee, put some people out that you may not want to hear from. Some of the people in Madison. And then you take their viewpoint, and then you come forward with something that makes sense from all the different sides. You're going to get one sounding word out of that committee that I can see. And you're just going to come back to this board, and it depends what the board is. You're going to have conflict. Now, 3 times to kick at the can is great, but when we kick at the can, it doesn't change stuff. We've done it before. That's just, you're telling us what we're doing. And then you wait till the very last minute when all the groups show up, when we're ready to do the final vote, and it's a mess. This is going to be a mess unless you start right now with a technical advisory committee that's more fair and objective and has more viewpoints on board. Then it can come to the board. And I can honestly say, if I sat on this board, this has had the viewpoints for everybody, and this is the consensus coming out of the committee. Right out of the box, you're putting people in a standoffish situation. It's been a tough rule, and I would start properly.
Sure. David? I'm going to invite Dave to speak. And Kyle, certainly the attorney in Madison does represent a large swath of the public. There's no question. And I think what I get the sense what Doc is saying, maybe that technical advisory group can be full of individuals that believe in this process, but also individuals who want to add value to the conversation by substantive changing some of these rules that exist in terms of construction in our riparian corridor.
Thanks for asking. Dave Siebert, Division Administrator for External Services. And Dr. Prain, certainly the goal of a technical advisory committee is to have a broad swath. When you see some of the names, you'll see that is the intent. If people have suggestions, of course, with an advisory committee, we can't have 50 people. We try to keep it manageable. So if folks have suggestions, we would listen to that. But the goal from the get-go has been and will be to have a broad swath, not to have it slanted.
And they are public meetings.
Any advisory committee meeting would be public noticed. Yep.
So we passed the scope statement. There's flexibility in the department to put or add or subtract people from this list, or is it set in stone with the scope statement?
I don't think
This,
not set in stone.
Not set, so some flexibility here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Doc, I would ask if board members have suggestions. Then
I will. I just didn't know if there's flexibility.
Yep.
Now they know that. Great to hear that.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay.
Harry.
Thank you, Preston, for your input there and direction. The one thing I would like to ask is if we can have a presentation to the board before we do the economic impact analysis. Because if we want to effectively make any adjustments in the proposal, we don't want you to have to go back and redo the economic impact analysis. So I think it would be helpful if that was shared with us.
Consider it done.
Thank you.
As an information.
Yep, absolutely.
I move
Just
order
making-
WWO 622.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Good luck.
Request approval of the statement of scope for board order AM 0522 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the legislative clearinghouse, rules clearinghouse. For proposed rules affecting chapter NR 439 to simplify, reduce, modernize, and make more efficient reporting, record keeping, testing, inspection, and determination of compliance requirement for sources of air containment.
So move.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second.
Did
Mariah,
Ashley get that motion?
is Mariah available? All right,
Yes.
well, let's take a 10-minute break, and I think they're on their way to getting things corrected there. And
10-minute pause,
yeah,
technical.
all right.
Doug, if we don't get connection, Gail Good's in the room and prepared to speak in place of me also.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass it on to the room.
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so. Okay. But we have 4 more
Hi,
people
this is Doug,
remotely presenting,
testing
so
the
we have to get
NRB
this
room.
fixed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Testing, can you hear me,
Okay,
Nicholas?
my volume is up.
Testing,
What do
1,
I
2,
hear? I hear
3.
something.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
What do you hear? You hear something?
Testing, Nicholas, can you hear me? Testing, 1, 2,
Yeah, what do you
3.
hear? Coming out of the speakers.
Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing in room sound.
Okay, so
Test-
Doug is talking
testing.
and we don't hear anything.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing in room sound. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing in room sound. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing in-room sound. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing in-room sound 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me okay? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Doug, you may want to try turning off recording on your end. That may be the conflict.
I don't think that should be an issue. Nicholas, can you confirm you're hearing me in the room now?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, so this is resolved for now.
I think it is. Maria, can you unmute and just so we can check somebody else?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Maria.
Okay, and is video also working? Should we?
Then we're not quite done with they're gonna come back from the break and then we'll get you all set up.
Okay, I will stand by. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
This is one of the other owners.
Mike, check.
Is he willing to tackle? Chris, Chair, we do have audio, no video, so folks will
Okay.
be on.
All right, so we're gonna move on with 4D. I think I already read it.
Reverb.
Good morning. Can you hear me? This is Maria Hill. Because I am unable to hear the board. I was hearing them, now I am not.
We hear you, Maria, here. We're working on it.
Do you want me to go ahead and speak even though I cannot hear them? Okay, I'm here, I'm seeing heads nod. So thank you and good morning, Chair Komirski, members of the board, and Secretary Cole. My name is Maria Hill, and I'm the Compliance Enforcement and Emissions Inventory Section Chief of the Air Management Program. Today, I'm requesting that the board approve the scope statement for Board Order AM 522, which considers rulemaking in Chapter NR 439. Chapter NR 439 describes reporting, record keeping, testing, inspection, and determination of compliance requirements for sources of air contaminants. The primary objective of this proposed rule is to simplify, reduce, and modernize these requirements. The department expects this rulemaking will result in improved efficiency for sources of air contaminants and the department by updating reporting, signature, and submittal practices, and by including some flexibilities in the rule text allowing for use of new technologies. Efficiencies may also be achieved through removal of redundancy with federal rule. On August 10th, 2022, the board authorized a preliminary hearing on the proposed scope statement. 4 members of the public attended the preliminary public hearing held on August 22nd of 2022. The department received comments from Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce and the Wisconsin Paper Council. The organization's comments included lists of changes the organizations would like the department to make during the proposed rulemaking. The department communicated with WMC and the Paper Council after the comment period to confirm that the statement of scope as written is comprehensive enough to address the changes identified in the submitted comments. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can everyone in the room hear me? Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair Kazmierski, members of the board, and Secretary Cole. My name is Meredith Penthorne, and I'm the policy specialist for the Bureau of Fisheries Management. And today we are requesting approval of our statement of scope that would allow us to create fish refuges under specific scenarios, namely when habitat projects or fish passage projects are constructed that would require fish refuges to protect fish populations on a faster timeline than is currently allowed with our regular process for establishing fish refuges, which is our biennial spring hearings rule. So the purpose of establishing fish refuges is to allow fish to reach their spawning areas and to continue to replenish the fish population for continued opportunities for good fishing. And we have the scope statements set up for both emergency and permanent rule processes. So the emergency rule would respond to specific fish passage projects, most likely, in which the construction timelines would occur on a very short period of time. So we need to get those rules into place more quickly than a permanent rule. And then with a permanent rule, we may also incorporate additional fish refuges, as well as potentially a process through administrative code to establish temporary fish refuges under specific criteria for moving forward for the future. And with that, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them if I can hear you.
Do we approve? Second. All in favor?
Yes, yes, discussion.
Discussion?
Yes, please.
Oh,
I thought it was interesting in white sheets, page 2. I asked Meredith to expand on the information on the first paragraph there, that near future due to increased infrastructure funding. My question was, where is the increased infrastructure funding coming from? And she was kind enough to let me know, so I think the board should know that it's not part of the scope statement that it be required, but she thinks it's going to come from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Just that you're aware of that, that would be federal funds. It was an interesting source for us. Good. We can utilize that.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're moving on to open forum. And our first speaker is here in person, Duke Tucker. And Duke, you have 3 minutes. When you see the red light flashing,
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Duke Tucker. I reside just north of Grantsburg, across the road from Crex Meadows Wildlife Area in Burnett County. I'm here today because I care about our community and the people that live within it. Thank you, Chairman Krasmierski and NRB members for the opportunity to appear in front of you today. I enjoyed the day with you folks yesterday. Together, we witnessed 3 shining examples of how the department can work with communities to accomplish goals to enhance the quality of life for all of us. While there are many shining examples of success, there are also examples where the department has not worked with communities to solve problems. As the NRB and department is aware, Carrie Harder and I, who are co-coordinators for what we call the GLGP water project, submitted a green sheet requesting an action item on today's meeting to simply correct inaccurate wording within the GLGP master plan regarding water quality, and to require the department to create a detailed groundwater management plan that reflects the groundwater gradients found during the 2019-2020 USGS DNR joint water study. Approving our revision request will lay the groundwork to solve the serious issues of groundwater flooding, which create serious property damage and lack of property use issues, and severely degraded groundwater quality. Both of these issues are highlighted in the memorandum that we provided to this board, along with our request. Anyone wanting a copy of that memorandum, ask me for it. We've also got YouTube videos up on my channel, Duke Space Stir. Our revision request is not only supported by State Senator Rob Stafschuld and Representative Gay Nafishi, who have met with residents and seen the issue firsthand. Also, Secretary Director James Yock and member Bill Smith have been to my house and reviewed the issue with us. Other than that, I don't know that anybody here has been involved. Our motion is, our request is also approved by the full Burnett County Board, the surrounding townships, and local residents that provide letters that they've signed. In addition, the author of the department's very own 2016 Crex Water Quality Assessment, who is a retired water quality specialist, Craig Ressler, provided a letter that clearly states the negative effects on groundwater due to the current water management practices within Crex Meadows. I don't want you to think for a second that the community doesn't love the Crex Meadows, because we do. I spend a lot of time on my own, picking up tires and appliances throughout the Crex. I duck out there. Enjoyed the swans. Governor Evers just announced $10 million to clean up private wells in the state, making drinking water a priority. As part of the press release, Secretary Cole himself stated everyone deserves clean drinking water. Secretary Cole, please show us that our community deserves clean drinking water as well. Thank you, sir. To correct our problem does not require money. It just requires removing a few rough sawn 2x6 boards that are artificially holding up the water. I'd like to see the NRB exercise its authority under 15.34 and providing supervision and direction to the department to correct the issue. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to working together with you.
A number of decades ago, the department altered the natural landscape to create a wildlife refuge. And it's been a very valuable spot for wildlife. I live near the Horicon Marsh, and I'm familiar with a lot of the history of what's been done there. Now, in your opinion, is there a water level that would satisfy both maintaining the wildlife sanctuary and repairing the damage that's been done to the water for private citizens?
Yes, sir. I've spent over 2,000 man hours on this project. I understand the USGS studies, both of them entirely, and the 2016 water quality assessment. I do have an opinion on that. The USGS shows that there's a downward hydraulic gradient of 5.81 feet per mile that crosses our property, and it varies up to 7 feet per mile throughout the area. So yes, I do have a detailed water management plan that I feel would fix the problem and maintain the habitat. I spent a lot of time as a kid in the Creeks Meadows when I'm done milking cows and throwing hay bales, viewing wildlife. So yeah, we have a proposal for that.
So having said that, I would like to pose the same question to the department. Is there a compromise here that would protect the wildlife and the habitat and also appease private landowners with their concerns about quality of water?
Thank you for that, Bill. Duke and I had a conversation earlier, certainly with my staff. One of my concerns was we got a letter. Not concerns, but an issue. We got a letter from a retired employee, and we're going to take Duke's information and do a reset so that we can sit down at a table and figure out what the go forward strategy is and hear him loud and clear. And so, Duke, if there's been any offense that the department has shed on you in this process, I'm apologetic, and I will hold people accountable for that. You're very impassioned in your work that you've been doing. We know there's a USGS well right across the street from you. You have given us a ton of information, so we're going to take that information and we're going to reset with you in a room and my team so that we can figure a go forward strategy out for you and other stakeholders around. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. And, you know, I'm a very forgiving person. Everybody deserves second, third, fourth chances when they work hard to correct the problem. I'm not looking for any litigation. This board can't act on items that are in litigation anyway. I simply want what's honest and right. That's it. I can forgive and forget and move on, but I would really appreciate in my 3-hour drive home, if you placed a call to remove the boards across the road from our house that do affect our water. Right now, my water softener, it does its best to take out about 14 parts per million of iron. Even at that, it's pretty hard to remove the iron from my water when it's 25 parts per million coming into my well. So I would really appreciate that phone call. And it shows a good effort of good faith. So thank you.
Duke, with that being said, I think the reality of the world we live in is that we can't take a saw and cut the board off. There's processes that are in place. And, you know, the NRB just passed this thing, so we share the blame like anybody else does. We passed it, but we had no idea this was going to be the cause effect. What's important is that the secretary realizes that there possibly is a cause effect that needs to be evaluated and not wait for 10 years for the master plan to be opened back up again. But with that being said, it doesn't happen fast. The wheels of government are slow. It can be fast tracked. You can have emergency this, emergency that, and attorneys can look into it. But you're not going to on the way home have somebody call and say, yeah, we're sending out, take the 2x6 out of there. It just doesn't happen that way. So, but what has happened in lightning speed that I've seen is you come back methodical, scientific, passionate, with more information than I've ever seen any citizen come to this board for to correct a possible wrong that's happened. So I congratulate you on that. It is getting to the top of the pile. When the secretary speaks like he is, this is not getting buried like a lot of people will speak and it did. Yeah, we'll take it under advisement. This clearly is not that way. So you can go back to your constituents and your senior citizens, and your neighbors and say, hey, we got the attention of the secretary and the board, because you do. But do not guarantee that this will be corrected by October 7th for the opening of ducks or whatever it is. It's just not going to happen. But I think it will happen faster than you can imagine if indeed the secretary behind it.
I'm gonna call James Yock to the podium.
Could I respond to Dr.
Sure, I'd
Green?
like you to respond.
This is a project I've been working on for close to 5 years now, so I'm very patient. And regarding the master plan, I don't fault the NRB for approving this plan. The information on page 31 that I asked for a correction to is false. The preliminary study that Craig Luster reported 3 years prior to the plan being voted on actually says what the truth is, that most likely there is impacts on groundwater quality. The master plan is written now says there is not. So I mean, it's not the NRB's fault, and I'm willing to work with the department. So thank you.
Yeah.
So
James?
thank you for your time. Where did that go?
So Jane, as Secretary's Director in this region, I know that you've been following this very close. So you've heard the tone and the tenor of the conversation today. So I'm going to give you my authority to pull together Duke and others, certainly the retired employee that wrote that. And let's start with a conversation. And then that group can then work on substantive items and start ticking them off one by one. And so I'm giving you my authority to call that meeting in order, if not this week, certainly by next week, and get people to the table. And I trust your judgment about doing that and set the agenda so we can begin to solve some of these issues here. To that end, I'd like for you to periodically update the board as to how those conversations are going. As you can tell that they too are concerned about water in this region. So we're gonna do a solid and make sure that they're in the loop. Thank you.
Yes, Secretary, we'll make it so.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
Next, Terry.
I want to thank the Secretary's office for taking action. Yeah, it's a good thing. You bet.
Okay, next speaker. Sam Loudy, Fox Lake representing South, and he should be here in person. Sam, are you here? Okay, we'll move on. Jeff Messman, representing Last Wilderness Alliance.
Jim Olson not showing?
In person. And he's further down on the list.
I got Jim Olson here. Got several people. I got Jim Olson.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Meesman. I'm a retired, licensed, registered professional engineer, and I live in Vilas County. I volunteer in DNR programs such as Clean Boat, Clean Water, and Citizen Lake Monitoring. I'm here to talk about hazardous wakes that are intentionally generated for the activity called wake surfing. Recently, the recreational activity called wake surfing has been increasing in our lakes in Wisconsin. Wake surfing is when you surf without a tow rope directly behind a specifically equipped boat that can generate large ocean-like powerful waves. The boat operates about 10 miles an hour, plowing through the water, never reaching a plane position. The bow is up and the stern is down, causing forward visibility problems. The propeller is angled down about 40 degrees below horizon, which causes propeller wash to scour the bottom of the lake 20 feet and below. The problem, wake surfing requires the generation of a large wake or hazardous wake. A hazardous wake is defined as a boat wake that is intentionally magnified through the use of ballast, design features, or operational procedures to amplify the wake's height and consequently generate large, dangerous waves. The problem is these hazardous wakes create a safety hazard to everyone else using the lake. They damage the environment, destroy personal property, and erode the shoreline. The root cause. Hazardous wakes are generated using specially designed boats equipped with wake enhancing features. Wake surfing boats have ballast tanks or compartments that can load up to 5,000 pounds of lake water. So the boat sits lower in the water and it increases the displacement, thus generating a larger wake. Boats are equipped with huge engines, 350 to 600 horsepower. The newer surf boats have mechanical flaps designed to make much bigger waves and wakes. These boats can weigh 6,000 pounds without the ballast, but once you load the ballast, they can weigh as much as 10,000 pounds, and they can generate wakes over 4 feet tall. The solution, we need to limit this activity to large enough lakes and deep enough to withstand the powerful wakes, the large, dangerous waves, and the prop wash that's generated. If this activity is allowed to go unchecked, we'll experience irreversible damage to our fragile lakes and to our economy that so depends on the lakes to attract tourism. I have submitted Vilas County hazardous wake citizen resolutions through the WCC Citizen Resolution Survey. These resolutions were supported by nearly 80% of those that voted and unanimously approved by the WCC Motorized Recreation Department Committee. What restrictions should Wisconsin consider? First, distance from shore and other watercraft. Suggest prohibiting operation of a boat that intentionally creates a hazardous wake within 700 feet of any dock, raft, pier, void restricted area, shoreline, and other watercraft. Second, water depth. The downward prop wash created in making hazardous wakes should require a minimum water depth of 20 feet. Third, invasives, and this is a really critical one. Ballast tanks cannot be fully emptied or inspected and might contain invasive species. Watercraft with ballast tanks should not be permitted to be moved between lakes unless the tanks are sterilized.
I think, Jeff, you're gonna have to wind it up.
Okay, lake size. There should be a minimum lake size for wake surfing of 1,500 acres. And finally, we're not asking to ban this activity or this type of watercraft. We're asking that intentional generation of hazardous wakes be limited to lakes that can safely withstand this activity without doing irreversible environmental damage, creating safety hazard, and causing personal property damage. Thank you.
Any questions for Jeff? Bill?
Jeff, you mentioned ballast water, and I read the materials you submitted, and full disclosure, we've been in a meeting together previously, very informative. The ballast water really caught my eye because it sounded like a very similar situation that we've seen on the Great Lakes, where foreign freighters are coming in with ballast water on board, dumping it in the Great Lakes with invasive species on board, and it's really led to the spread of a lot of these undesirable species in the area. The ballast water on these wake boats or wake surfing boats, however you want to describe them, could you talk a little bit about your understanding of how they manage that ballast water?
Sure.
Is this something that's completely unloaded and reloaded every time? And is there a lot of movement from one lake to another?
Wake boats can transport water that may contain invasive species in ballast compartments because these compartments cannot be fully emptied. When the boats when the boats move from one lake to the next and they take on new lake water, they may have invasives in the water that was remaining in them, and they get transferred from the first lake to the second lake. Filling and emptying ballast tanks relies on a bilge type pump. It's like an impeller type pump. These pumps have to have a prime in order to flow. When I told that to my wife, she said, I don't know what a prime is. So I'll explain it as simply as I can. If you're cleaning your windows with a Windex bottle and you're spraying them and you get to the last 1/4 inch or last 1/8 inch, it stops working. It's lost its prime to pump that fluid. That's what happens with these tanks is they lose their prime on their pumps and then they can no longer pump the water out of the bilge tanks. The systems are actually designed so they can't completely drain, and it's a closed system, so you can't open them up and let them dry out and evaporate. One study that was done by the University of Wisconsin examined 23 boats and the contents of the residual water in the recreational watercraft ballast systems. 5 of the boats they couldn't measure them because they didn't have the tanks. 5 other boats had tanks but were inaccessible. They couldn't even get to them. They couldn't get in there. They couldn't inspect them, couldn't do anything with them. 13 of the boats had an average of 8 gallons remaining of water, even after they tried to pump them dry. 2 of those boats had 20 gallons. Of the 13 boats tested, the ballast water contained 13 different families of zooplankton and microinvertebrates. 2 of those boats had invasive mussel larvae. That's like zebra mussel. Spiny water fleas were introduced to Europe and Asia, are native to Europe and Asia. In North America, they're considered an invasive species. In 1982, Lake Ontario was infected. 1987, Lake Superior was infected. Discharge of contaminated cargo ship ballast water was the root cause. So far in Vilas County, we have spiny water fleas in 5 lakes: Trout, Stormy, Star, Plum, and Ike Walton. And there's at least 12 other lakes in Wisconsin. It's just a matter of time before the other lakes are infected. State law requires boaters to inspect for invasives, drain all the water from the boats, motors, and all equipment. But manufacturers have not made those ballast tanks possible to inspect, drain completely, or dry. We already have a law in place, but the state turns a blind eye to this. Using ballast systems cannot meet existing state laws and can and should be banned from our precious lakes.
Kristen?
Troubling at best. So I'm going to ask law enforcement to come up and advise the board as to what they're seeing on the lakes. I think it's important for them to hear what we have to say as a issue. Then I think Terry's up there.
Could I ask that they direct a specific one, 19.055? That is the actual regulation required to.
We're gonna change what they see on the lakes.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Name, rank, and serial number.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Recreation Warden, Peter Wetzel. I cover the northwest portion of the state, essentially. At the moment, it's a 10-county area due to a vacancy, normally a 7-county area. Basically from Polk County up to Douglas, and I'm currently covering part of the west central area, including St. Croix County to Dunn. I recently in this position, prior to this, I worked as conservation warden out of Polk County. And I will speak to this point based off of the complaints that I've received. Currently, as state law says that any motorboat is required to go no faster than slow no wake, which is defined as not faster than what is required to maintain steerage within 100 feet of the shore, docks, or swim rafts. Excuse me. And I haven't observed the things I'll talk about with these complaints, but I've received a high number of complaints within the last several of years regarding these watercraft. And some of these complaints have included we'll say a feud between riparian owners and somebody who didn't live on the lake, but frequented a certain lake, where words were exchanged, bad blood was made, I guess. And so what the operator had done of this wake boat was he would go 100 feet from shore, 100 feet from the docks, and 100 feet from the swim rafts, and he would make the biggest wake that he could, and which was legal by that law that I just said. And his wake would then go and reportedly would dislodge boats, had reportedly swamped 2 docked boats, and had reportedly knocked some people off of their paddle boards. So, which the unfortunate thing with this is that the complainants that I had were not the people who were affected by this reported wake. I was able to go and see the reported damages, and the victim of the paddleboard that got knocked off, which that's one incident of several, not including this individual, but other lakes where I've had people make similar complaints where canoes got tipped over or people tipped on kayaks or similar sorts of things. But the victims themselves didn't report those violations of secondhand information. So I did talk to the individual from this instance that I am speaking of, and he didn't, we'll say, admit to any of those things, but he did admit that he was making that wake specifically because or doing this practice of making a wake with near that 100-foot mark because of bad blood, I guess let's put it that way. And there is a hazardous wake law in place, but the hazardous wake law essentially affects a hazardous wake that creates a dangerous situation for public safety. And well, when you're swamping a boat that's docked, then there isn't a public safety aspect there. Talking with the sheriff's department of Polk County and the district attorney, the determination was made that as far as criminal damage to property was concerned, that they decided, that being the district attorney, that this is more of a civil litigation issue rather than a law enforcement issue, because that there wasn't any public safety involved, and that by the statutory law, as far as the 100-foot rule is concerned, he was actually adhering to it. This is just one case study of, like I said, several complaints that I have of this sort of nature. And I've heard this, I guess, reverberations throughout the state, not just in that isolated county.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matt O'Brien, Deputy Chief Warden for the Division of Public Safety Resource Protection. I would offer, with this board's leave, because I think there's a number of interconnected circumstances here, that maybe we bring back an informational item. There's the aquatic plant management component, which are exotic invasive species. I think over in Dave Siebert's shop would have a lot of expertise to offer. There's the mechanical dredging component of what's happening at a habitat level. And then I think there's this sort of ancillary safety piece So I think perhaps for the benefit, as these devices continue to evolve and there's a lot of complexity, we've got riparian issues as part of that, that might be beneficial to provide some information and maybe some pass forward of left or right with some statutory changes as potential options or other management tools.
Mr. Chair, if the board would like, we can do the ADCs and 1, 2, 3s on these wake boats and the challenges thereof.
I think we should.
I think it's important, Mr. Secretary, that everybody kind of gets the same lingo. Because wake boats are not surf boats. So when we say that, it gets people up in arms. I was gonna do it during board matters, but sure, if you're okay with any kind of referrals, let's just do it now. Transparency, Bill and I did sit down with this group, and I have personally witnessed this on the river chain. I personally witnessed many of the things that were allocated today. I personally witnessed 11 o'clock at night with floodlights and people not connected to the boat surfing up and down the waterway. I personally witnessed the bottom of the lake, which is obviously have layers and layers of sediment to keep phosphates at and stirred up turbid and weeds coming into shore the next day, which we never had. I also personally witnessed the boats up on plane with no visibility going forward, which is a safety issue. You guys haven't even talked about that. That's number one in my book, because we have these boats plowing 10 miles an hour and they're all focused on their wakeboard behind there. That's the excitement. And there is no visibility. And I've seen kayakers waving their arms, trying to get out of the way of these people because they have no idea they're ahead of it. That's a safety issue. Maybe a big wake doesn't tipping up a paddleboat isn't a safety issue. That's a safety issue that every time this boat operates happens on the waterways of Wisconsin. So I was going to say in board matters, I would love to have a committee form, the secretary, to discuss the full range that Matt brought up today, from aquatic species to safety to everything. And what I told this committee, and not committee, the people that talked to Bill and I, is I'm not sure how to navigate this. No pun intended. I'm not sure it's legislative, but I think it's within the realm of the DNR to do some regulation in this area. We have an obligation to protect safety, waterway, aquatic plants, sediment, erosion control, and the potential conflict of human life between what the other officer mentioned. I'm just not sure how to do it. And I think, Mr. Secretary, that if you could do that and come back to us in about 3-4 months and let us know if this is the board's privy or not, I'd love to know it. If not, I think the legislative, then the group should go after legislators.
Ashley, would you convene the appropriate division and schedule a ABCs 1, 2, 3s as relates to this watercraft, as Doc mentioned, to include these invasive species, public safety, and the like. So from there, we can determine where the DNR's rules and regulatory systems are in play, what statutes, if any, need to be created.
I just think the public needs to know that the focus of this issue is on this board administration, or is it not? If not, they need to get giddy up and do what they got to do in Madison and the Capitol. The sooner we can do that, the better it is for the people that are concerned by this.
We're on it.
Thank you.
All right,
Chair, comment, please.
Bill.
To me, this seems very much like present policy we have in place to protect resources. The slow no wake law for smaller lakes was set up specifically to protect resources and to provide an environment for recreation that's not going to be influenced by boats that are much too big and too powerful for the waters that they're on. And clearly the restrictions on moving live well water and all the associated other risks for endangered species, there's rules and requirements in place for that. These wake boats, to me, surf boats, present really a higher level of technology in a way, a bigger machine that's going to be on the resources, and it has much bigger impacts. And I think, as people have said, the people that came here with concerns aren't trying to outlaw these or get rid of them. They're trying to bring in a regulatory and policy framework to put them in where they can enjoy their recreational pursuits safely and not at the expense of other people, resources, or property. And I think that's the crux of the issue. when the department does the review, Mr. Secretary, I'd really appreciate it too, if they can get into the details of where the gaps are and recommendations on what might be done either at local or state level to help fill those gaps.
Got it. Ashley,
Thank
catch
you.
that? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks. Next speaker, John Richter. Representing Plum Lake Association.
I'm John Richter. I'm a resident of town of Plum Lake in Vilas County, speaking as president of Plum Lake Association and Wisconsin Shoreland Alliance. I'm here to address the issue of dangerous and damaging waves and prop wash created by wake surfing on inland lakes. On July 16 of 21, a veteran water skier navigated the first wave from a passing wake boat on Plum, but couldn't manage the second and fell hard into the crest. She injured her shoulder and her neck, and it ended her skiing for the summer of 21. From a board member of Big St. Germain Lake, on July 12th this year, a paddleboarder got caught in the trough of a wakeboard wave, and it knocked her off and sent her paddleboard flying. It was being carried away in the wake, so I picked her up in my boat and retrieved the board. We've heard that DNR employees have questioned safety concerns surrounding wake surfing due to the relatively low number of incidents reported. And none of these incidents were reported, and none of the other ones that we have on a list either. I will just offer that when you have a fallen or injured person in the water, the last thing you're worried about is looking for boat numbers. I won't repeat the facts and figures of the summary of the Carroll study you had before you. I will say that in my 10 years as president of Plum and 30 years of activity in other watersheds, wake surfing represents a threat with the broadest spectrum of damage to our lakes, lake shores, and lake users that I've encountered. This threat grows with every newly purchased boat. The industry reports they are the fastest growing segment of new boat sales. On Plum, we got our first wake surf boat in 2019. We had 3 in 21, and we've got 6 this year. That's kind of a trend. On some smaller lakes in Vilas and Oneida, they number in the double digits. On 430-acre North Lake in Waukesha County, they have 42. This, of course, doesn't account for the transient boats brought up for vacation from other areas. Speaking for Plum, destruction of our remaining weed beds, which are already 60 to 70% reduced by rusty crayfish, by smothering plants with silt from the downward prop wash from wake boats, would spell the end of our fish habitat. As one of perhaps 20 inland lakes with spiny water flea, the ballast water remaining in wake boats leaving Plum will likely spread that invasive to other lakes. As the Loon Ranger on Plum, I can report that one of our historic pairs has been washed out the last 4 years by boat waves. This pair had been successful for 8 consecutive years preceding 2019. The new science from Carroll University and the University of Minnesota is solid. And action is urgently needed to regulate this threat to our northern lakes and protect the economy of the North, which is contingent on the health of our lakes. Your lake stewards from our lake associations need your help now to prevent irreversible damage to our lakes and protect other lake users. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions, Terry?
Thanks for your testimony. How many acres is Plum Lake?
1,100. We're long and narrow.
Yeah.
If you measure 500 feet from shore and 25 feet deep to avoid the prop wash impact, that probably will get deeper as the boats get bigger, and they are getting bigger. You've got 4 disconnected pods along that long, narrow lake. It's possible to do it. That doesn't solve the safety concerns.
The study that you referenced,
Yes.
did they give you any statistics as to what should be the minimum parameters?
The University of Minnesota's St. Anthony Falls lab did a great study. Carroll also studied that problem. And the consensus was somewhere between 500 and 600 feet. There are other studies now that are going on. I think there's one in Michigan that was just completed that suggested 1,000 feet. It depends on the size of the boat, the size of the motor. And again, the boats are getting bigger and the motors are getting bigger. We're talking about 600 horsepower at some of these motors now.
Did they give you any acreage sizes?
No, not really. I mean, you really have to look at the lake. In our area, Big St. Germain has 1,560 acres. But it's 35 feet deep, and a good portion of it is less than 25 feet deep. It doesn't leave a big hole to wake surf in. If that number goes down to 30 feet, which we suspect it might because of the size of the boats that were used in the studies and the size of the boats that are coming out of the industry now, there's very little left in St. Germain. And it's been talked about that we should have a 1,500 foot or 1,500 acre minimum. That might not quite be big enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Jim Olson, Madison representing self. I'm not sure if he's in person.
Good morning. I'm Jim Olson. I'm a lawyer from Madison, Wisconsin. I'm appearing on behalf of myself. I grew up in Madison, fished the Madison Lakes, but over 40 years ago, I fell in love with the North and bought a place on Crab Lake in Vilas County. When I became interested in this issue, I contacted George Meyer, who formerly was DNR secretary and for many years was legal counsel for the Department of Natural Resources. And together we crafted a resolution before the Wisconsin Conservation Congress that had the 1,500 acre limitation, 700 feet buffer zones from shores and other users. That passed Dane County with 94% of the vote. It was unanimously adopted by the Motorized Recreation Committee of the WCC. This is a nonpartisan issue. Wherever people have had an opportunity to vote, they've overwhelmingly asked for regulations. And that's what we are asking now. I'm very encouraged by Secretary Cole bringing together the people to look at this issue. And I think that I would like to see the scope statement developed fairly soon so this can be moved along. I realize this is a long process, but it's much quicker than going through the Wisconsin Conservation Congress process. I think that what you're talking about and bringing the group together would also help local governments, because there are numerous local units of government that are looking forward to adopting their own regulations. And if there's some guidance from the Department of Natural Resources regarding that, I think that would be great. And finally, I want to say something about the invasive species issue. Wisconsin statute NR 19.055 sub 1 makes it clear that these boats are currently violating natural resource regulation. There's no question about it. The regulation specifically talks about emptying ballast water, which we know cannot be done. So right now, there's being violations out there every time these boats take the water and leave the water, and nothing can be done about it. So I think you should take emergency regulations to deal with this issue. I think that 19.0551 was originally a emergency regulation. So I'm asking the board to seriously consider doing a scope statement and also consider emergency regulations to deal with these ongoing violations. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions?
Jim, I don't know whether the request for having emergency regulations is even necessary.
Maybe
The
not.
balance is clear. You know,
Yeah.
if everybody's concentrating on fishing boats and live wells.
Uh-huh.
There's no difference if it's ballast in a surf boat. It's also no different than if I had to take my fishing boat and put it up on plane, I can't forward visibility. I think the game warden should really take existing statute and regulation and start to enforce it. Because if you pull a surf out of the water and you can't change the water out of the ballast, it's a violation.
Yeah.
It's already on the books. We don't need an emergency to do that. It's a matter of enforcing it.
Terry.
Can we have Matt come up again? Thank you, Jim, for your testimony.
Can I just quickly respond? I mean, I totally agree. But I'll step aside.
Should have sat in the front row. Good morning, sir.
Pardon me, Matt. The two issues that were just raised, are wardens in a position to ticket those operators for violating the rules?
Well, yeah, so there's two components. So the first is NR 19.055 requires all water to be drained out, very similar to most states. Some states have laws, you actually have to have the plugs out. There's a proof component of that, which is I need to prove to our level of standard at preponderance of an evidence at court that there's water in the tank. Now, there's a lot of things that we practically know might be happening, but to actually document that and be able to say that is always a challenge. Can't just show up at court and say, well, I know that these boats tend to have it and that these are the characteristics. So part of what I'm thinking through, and this goes a bit to, I think, what Doc was mentioning, the technological advances of the equipment are very different, far outpace statute. Most of our boating regulation is in statute. The department doesn't control that. The other piece of that is local ordinances. We have local lake associations or towns that can create their own slow no wake setbacks and whatnot. But the 100-foot standards all exist in statute. I suspect the statute's probably 50 plus years old. A 10,000 pound, 600 horsepower wake boat wasn't a thing back then. So part of this is the constant, technological evolution is probably outpacing the speed of our laws, which is not an uncommon thing. But as I think through those ballast tanks, there's a sort of this perverse problem, which is how do you actually inspect them? And I think that's maybe that part where having the manufacturers as part of that conversation, who I think also have a joint interest in protecting Wisconsin shorelines and the spread of aquatic invasives, need to sort of be at the table. How do we find a win-win there? But I suspect, and we'll get into that with the presentation, hopefully here, is that there might be some statutory changes and some give and take. So, when you're talking $250,000, $300,000 vessel, any additional pieces of that, I understand the manufacturers and the purchasers probably have some vested interest in that, but.
Thank you. I would totally agree that with the ballast issue, that's got to be a manufacturing issue, that those ballast tanks should be designed to be able to comply with the rules that exist. So.
No question. However, if they already have boats on the water, which they do, exponentially increasing, and they can't, law enforcement should be able to say that boat can't be drained. You don't have to go and prove it. You just get the manufacturer, the make and the model, and then you say that boat can't be drained. Somehow it has to be drained though for wintertime for storage. I get that.
Yeah,
but my point is, I think there's no question the manufacturers have to come to the table.
Yeah, but yeah, so I agree with you. It's a multifaceted challenge, but yeah.
I think it's unacceptable that we have to sit here in Wisconsin for the next 3 years in northern Wisconsin and have these boats go from lake to lake. These lakes aren't big. 600 acres, 800 acres, 300 acres. These boats are going in all the lakes you can't believe. And we can wait 3 years and have these ballast. It only takes one ballast to pump out of Plum Lake or Trout Lake up there to dump that fly in these other lakes. One time. So if we have existing regulation and statutory authority, we should enforce it. Just try to prevent that, because it's going to take 30 months for this to go through if we even have the authority to do it.
And I do think that there should be consideration given to the emergency rule.
If we need it, we already have existing rule. It may not need it. That's all.
Well, except, excuse me, Matt just testified that, yeah, you can order as many tickets as you want. You get in front of the county judge and he says, give me the proof. And the warden can't prove it.
But the boat's made not to dump it, Terry. That's your proof. But I understand it's not easy. The point is nothing's being done now.
Oh, yeah.
And I think at least the optics are on something that we should do if we can.
Yep.
When we bring it back, we will include certainly the laws around these issues, certainly the ballast water issue, invasive species issue, costs associated with the problems on lakes. It'll be a full, robust presentation. So then that this board can act accordingly if at all.
Thank you.
Next up, Cookie Meyer.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, members of the board. I'm going to come across as a broken record or an old blue tick hound that just won't quit a cold trail. We came up with resolutions years ago that passed counties Those resolutions became advisory questions. In 2021, they passed the Congress procedure. The Wisconsin Wildlife Federation supported them. Those resolutions we call the 3 dog questions. I've appeared before the board and I've asked for updates. What's happening? I continually get phone calls, emails. What's happening? I keep getting, yeah, we're forming a committee from the department. I asked you, Mr. Secretary, your words were, I'll get back to you. And now I've got a meeting coming up here in October to the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation Board. What's happening with these dog resolutions? All we're asking is to sit down and have a discussion with department personnel. Over the years, and I've been involved with this for 40+ years, the intents of all the dog stuff go back to the 60s. The intention of all that's in administrative code have been lost. One of the rules are the closure of all training and trialing and hunting of dogs in the northern third of the state. And it's written so vaguely that a person in their own backyard, if that dog isn't on a leash and it barks at a squirrel, could be cited for a violation. All we're asking is to talk. We have in captive wildlife places for getting permits to hold dog trials and training. Now it's the quiet time and permits are being denied for these activities. Permits that were given and then personnel changes happen and during the duration of a permit are being canceled. We need to sit and talk. There's been so many changes and interpretations in department personnel just recently. There's so much confusion that department people don't even understand the code that does exist. What the dog clubs, state organizations want to do is have some meaningful.
So, any questions or comments from the
Well,
board?
at least let the public know that you just cut them off, that we could not.
We could not communicate to them.
We
Right.
didn't mean to be, we didn't mean to be rude, but
Right.
well, there's time.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Corky was getting at in terms of sitting down. Ashley talked to law enforcement and program staff to sit down with Corky, hear what he has to say.
Can
It's
you
news
hear
to
me now?
but we haven't yet.
Can you?
Look at that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. And Pat Quaintance, Wildlife Federation President.
Good morning, Secretary Cole and rest of the board. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak here in front of you. I'm representing the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. My name is Pat Quaintance. I'm familiar with the area up here. I've lived here for over 30 years. This is in regards to the wolf management plan. Wisconsin Wildlife Federation Board is making a plea for the DNR to complete the wolf management plan soon. This is a long overdue and is owed to the citizens of Wisconsin. The current wolf plan was approved in 1999 and revised in 2007. In 2009, work began to revise that plan. The primary draft issued April of 2010. For review to the Science Committee and Stakeholders Committee who designed that plan. There was no further communication about the primary revised plan. In 2012, work began again to revise the wolf management plan. The effort involved a committee of DNR staff, at least 10 attended every meeting, with 14 meetings ending in October 2014. Just as the plan was about to be released for public comment in December 2014, wolves were relisted under the ESA, and the DNR state of Wisconsin made the decision to end work on the wolf management plan and revise and disband the DNR wolf advisory committee. From the time forward until 2020, no public input was allowed into wolf management, and no work was done on the finished draft plan. For 13 years, the public has endured wolf expansion and no meaningful management action on the part of the Wisconsin DNR. The expansion to the DNR and the other agencies that participate in these three planning efforts, plus the volunteers who diligently worked on these three plans, seems to be unvalued and ignored by the DNR's continued inactions on completing the plan. The potential wolf season in 2022 was also deleted by court action due to the Wisconsin DNR not completing the wolf management plan. Communicating with the tribal interest and developing permanent rules for harvest seasons. Wisconsin citizens deserve timely attention and completion of wildlife and environmental plans. We at the Wisconsin Wildlife recommend DNR immediately release the draft wolf management plan for public review and input. In addition, the wolf estimates has been severely delayed these past 2 years, and that information needs to be made public. Finally, it has come to our attention that wildlife professionals within the state of Wisconsin
Need to wrap it up.
has not had any discussion or ongoing planning sessions with the Department of Interior, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and to design and write a wolf delisting order that will stand up in court. So that's my
Any questions for Pat?
spill.
Marcy.
Thank you. Bill?
Marcy.
Marcy.
Sorry, you get me first.
Okay, I didn't see your hand.
No,
Sorry.
that's fine. The chairman recognized. Did you say that the lack of a hunting season was due to the lack of a plan?
Yes. That was that was the decision that was made out in California with the judge, because there was no wolf management plan completed.
I think there was probably more to that, and the perhaps that how the hunting season did go that February may have played a role in that as well, and our tribal friends having an opinion as well. So I'm concerned about a blanket statement like that was the cause. And then the no action by DNR staff, as I understand it, when they were delisted, staff was able to address problem rules for livestock predation, things like that. And we still have a program where animal damage claims can be made for those types of things, correct?
Yes, but wildlife services cannot do any trapping or euthanizing of the wolves presently. That's the way I understand it.
Presently, correct.
Yes.
But to say, again, just those blanket statements of nothing being done, no, that I think is a bit of a concern for me, because to get this going, we all have to work together, and the plan process, I understand, is a challenging one. But the representation and the amount of information, it makes sense to me that there's not just one thing that's at issue. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that Senator Baldwin and Senator Johnson introduced some measure to get the wolf delisted in cooperation with representatives from other states. Where's our legislative liaison?
I certainly saw that in the newspaper. I'm not sure what else did we have.
It's in committee.
That's where it is. And thank you for that. Pat, the wolf management plan will be released this fall. And right after you finish, then Randy Johnson and his team will go into the work that they've been doing in terms of pups and counting wolves. So to that end, we are actively doing what we need to do as wildlife managers. It may not be on a timeline that folks can appreciate, but we're at work.
Bill.
Yes, I have a close friend that I've known for a long time, and he has been a part of a hunting group that has a cabin in the North Woods, not too far from here. And that's been continuing for decades, and so the hunting experience, they hunt on public land. The hunting experience has deteriorated just dramatically. They come up here still just kind of just because it's a neat experience to see to see nature. But he claims that the wolf has been very detrimental to the deer herd in this area. And I just wondered if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, yes, I do. I'm also a delegate for Wisconsin Conservation Congress for Bayfield County. I'm on the CDAC committee. And one of the things that we've been debating is the deer population. I live right off the Sand River, where there was an area where the deer yarded up year after year after year. And there was like I say, I worked here as a state conservation warden for 20 years. I've known the area really well. I'm in the woods every day. Every day I spend in the woods. On my way here, I drove 25 miles. I seen one deer on my way here. In the last, I would say, through the summer months, I got a new freshly planted alfalfa field right across the road from my house, my property. I have not seen a deer in it in the last 3 months. I got many cameras out on my property and my son's property. We got wolves within 50 yards of our house. We have not seen the deer that we used to see, or not even close to it. But we've seen plenty of wolves, and a lot of them got collars on them from the tribes, or collaring the wolves. Are the wolves doing a number on our deer population? I think so, very much so. That's why I approached Kaz during this at one of the meetings to express my concerns about our deer population. And that Sand River bottom, there used to be a browse line on the white cedar that's in that area. That browse line is gone now. And there's white cedar that's 3-4 foot high, that because there is no deer there browsing on those white cedar anymore. So yes, the wolves have really done an impact. And I appreciate Preston Cole, what he has to say about this, but the people that are living in these areas are really have a problem with these wolves. I got a farm to the north of me.
You'll get the opportunity. Scientists.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
All right. So we're moving on. That concludes the open forum. And number 6, information item, wolf population monitoring and winter 2021-22 wolf population
Can we
estimate.
take a break? Let's take 5 minutes, Chairman.
Want to take another one? Okay, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Doug,
Yes.
did anything I say come across to the board?
Hi, Corky. Yeah, everything you did say up until your cutoff time did come up.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, our next item is an informational item, wolf population monitoring and winter 2021-22 wolf population estimate. Randy Johnson, our large carnivore specialist, is here. Randy, you can begin.
Begin? Okay.
Glad he is.
Yes, good morning, Chair Kazmierski, Secretary Cole, members of the board. My name is Randy Johnson, large carnivore specialist for the Bureau of Wildlife Management. And as mentioned, I'm here to present an informational item reviewing both the department's wolf monitoring efforts, as well as share with you the results of our overwinter survey from last winter, our wolf abundance estimate. See if I can work this. So I want to start with a little bit of background, just to kind of share with you how this data is collected and how it's analyzed and what that looks like on the back end, instead of just sharing with you a number. So the department has monitored the state's wolf population every single year, going back all the way to 1979, and actually before that, but abundance estimates every winter back to 1979, including years where wolves were listed and delisted. And I think that's something the state should be proud of. Not every state with a wolf population has such a track record of scientific monitoring of their wolf population. Currently, we monitor the population through a variety of science-based techniques. These include winter track surveys, winter snow track surveys, GPS collared wolves, as well as assessment of mortalities, and taking public observation reports of where the folks are seeing wolves. Of these, the winter snow track surveys and the collars are the two elements that provide the key data to estimate wolf population abundance. And that's what I'm going to kind of focus on here for this slide. So to start, on the top there, you'll see the winter snow track surveys, and these are exactly what they sound like. These are tracking surveys that are conducted each winter with fresh snow conditions. We conduct these all across the state. You can see the map up in the top right, all across wolf range. Those tracking blocks, as we refer to them, are used to allocate effort. We look at essentially the last several years worth of wolf observations, tracking data, depredation reports, and that helps us paint the picture of where we have wolf packs in the state and direct that tracking effort. So the map that's up there right now, all those gray blocks were tracked this past winter, again, based on that data set of where we've had wolf observed activity. I mentioned fresh snow conditions, driving the back roads at a slow rate of speeds. Surveyors are looking for not only wolf tracks, but other species as well. When they encounter wolf tracks, they record, get out and walk around and try to estimate, okay, not only are these wolf tracks, but how many wolves left these tracks? Is it one wolf, two wolf, what have you? They're conducted all throughout the winter, beginning as late or as early as November, and usually wrapping up by the end of March, April 1st. And we have a number of collaborators as well. These are not just DNR staff. We certainly have a number of staff that run these, but we also have tribal collaborators. We have USDA partners, wildlife services, and then we have a fairly unique citizen science component. We have volunteer trackers that go through a training process. We teach them, the basics of tracking. What are you looking for? As well as the actual survey protocol. They're running the same surveys that our staff and other collaborators are running. And that component has been around since 1995. And again, contributes the same data. The second part, the GPS collars. For many, many years, the department has radio collared wolves. We just heard about that. In the last few years, we've transitioned exclusively to GPS collared wolves. And this is same idea, but newer technology. The GPS collars provide much greater resolution data. It's almost in real time, a lot of capabilities there. We try to maintain a number of wolves collared across the state in different packs, with a real focus on trying to maintain collared packs across the state in different areas to capture the variability in habitat types out there, whether it's deep forest or more agricultural. We know the packs may behave differently, especially with movements and territory sizes based on those habitat characteristics. So that's one of our goals we keep in the back of our mind. partnering with USDA Wildlife Services primarily to deploy these collars. We also have some DNR staff, as well as, again, a citizen science component. We try to advertise each fall through different channels that private trappers that are out there pursuing coyote or bobcat, legally, if and when they incidentally capture a wolf, they can contact us. And if the situation works out, we can go out and not only release that animal, but put a collar on it at the same time. And that's been a great partnership over the years. Ebbs and flows, obviously, with what calls come in, but probably most every year, we work with some number of private trappers to, again, capture or collar and release those incidentally captured wolves. Okay, let's get into some results. So this past winter, the Wildlife Management Program really prioritized these snow tracking surveys. As we all know, that February wolf season occurred February 2021, and it left us with a little bit of increased uncertainty with where we're at with the wolf population. And so that following year, again, we prioritized this. We wanted to make sure we had a really solid data set, and I think largely we do. You can see the graph in the bottom left, that represents the number of miles that were surveyed, again, through these winter snow track surveys, how many miles were driven and surveyed. You can see quite an increase in this last year's effort. One of the biggest survey efforts ever conducted, in fact, in the state, both between an increase in participation by staff, but also our volunteer participation stayed about same as the year before. Nearly 17,000 miles surveyed, over almost 500 surveys completed. Again, a good data set. And that one of the benefits of that, of course, is, we're using a statistical population model, which I'll get to in a second, but better data, more data, it increases that precision, those confidence intervals around the estimate. And we saw that. So I want to take this second to just give recognition and thanks where it is due. A big recognition to not only our volunteer trackers that spend their time and effort and money on this, but also our collaborators, our tribal collaborators, our federal partners, as well as the DNR staff that have to juggle a lot of priorities, and they put a lot of effort into this as well. So thank you to them. On the other side, GPS collars. The mean home range size, 66 square miles. This was estimated off of 41 GPS collared wolves over the last 2 winters. That is a statewide average. Some packs are larger, or territory sizes, excuse me. Some territory sizes are larger, some are smaller, but 66 square miles, that's the statewide average. And very similar to what we've seen in recent years. We were able to get 9 additional new radio collars out. That number of collars out there is always ebbing and flowing. Radio collars quit working, unfortunately. Wolves die, and then we're able to obviously capture and deploy new collars. So I think right now we have about 20 radio collars on deck that we're going to try to get out here over the next year. Right now we have 14 radio collars that are providing us data. There's probably twice that many out there on the landscape, but not everyone obviously is working like we want it to. It's a trade-off with GPS collars in particular. They're very technologically savvy, but things break. Okay, so what do we do with all this data? Sorry, I keep thinking I'm clicking this button. The data from the snow track surveys and the GPS collars goes into what's called a scaled occupancy model. I think we've shared this with the board before, but I kind of want to give a very high level overview of what this actually looks like. So this approach, this occupancy modeling approach, is very well established in the wildlife management field. It's used on a variety of species, a variety of applications. It's used literally around the world. It's a very well vetted process. In fact, Montana and Idaho use a similar approach with occupancy modeling to estimate their wolf populations. Our model is tailored specifically to Wisconsin. It was developed with our research scientists and DNR in collaboration with UW-Madison back in, I think, 2017 or so. A few years of testing and comparing it to our old methodology before we rolled it out in 2020. And that's what we're obviously using going forward.
A number of benefits to it, which I won't really dive into, but again, I wanted to just kind of paint a picture of what does this actually look like. And so when we're talking about abundance estimates from the model, there's really three main components. That's on the bottom right there. The total area occupied by wolves, wolf packs, the average territory size, as I alluded to with GPS collars, and then the average pack size. So first things first, that estimate of where are wolves in the state. Oops, make sure I don't do that. That's this part over here. That doesn't work very well, but that graphic kind of gives a simplified version of what these surveys look like and the data that's being collected. So you'll notice the first thing on the landscape is it's cut into those grids, right? Each of those grids essentially represents a tracking block. Surveyors go out and they spend time observing in those grid cells. Now there's several things that can happen. You may or may not have wolves present, and you may or may not observe them if they are present. That's what's represented by the zeros and ones. Going out, running a survey event, a 0 would be failing to detect them, a 1 would obviously be detecting them. But again, there's some underlying process of are wolves there or not. And so there's multiple outcomes. The reason we do these repeated surveys is to gather, the repeated surveys, the zeros and one data. It not only gives you information on where you observed wolves, but also it allows the model to estimate and account for wolves that are present but not detected. And that's a very large benefit over the previous methodology where you either counted and found wolves and counted them or you didn't. This is an improvement that way. So through those essentially zeros and ones, I'll call them, we get an estimate of the area of the state occupied by wolves, the top part of that equation. The second part is the average territory size, again, from radio collar data, 66 square miles this past winter. And the third part is average pack size. How many wolves are in an average pack? Again, that comes from snow tracking data. When you observe wolf tracks, you get out and follow them until you get a confident count in how many wolves laid those tracks. The other part to remember, and this is important, in each of those three components, there is inherent variability. This process captures that. Statistically, it captures the variability and it carries it throughout that mathematical process. And that results in those 95% credible intervals that I'll share in a second. It's important to recognize that because we know that this wolf population is not static. There's not a single number of wolves out there at any given time. We know it ebbs and flows. And the model is able to account for that variability through statistics. Okay, you've heard me talk long enough. We'll get into some more results. So these are the key results, or some key results, I should say, from last winter's wolf survey. So the table on the left shows the breakdown of abundance, the most likely values by zone and by statewide, or range-wide, I should say, as well as those 95% credible intervals. So the overwinter 2021-2022 wolf population abundance was estimated between 812 and 1193 wolves, with the model indicating approximately 972 wolves as the most likely estimate within that pack occupied range. To put it in plain language, you can think of that as a bell curve. The 972 would be the peak of the bell curve, and those other two numbers would be the tail ends of that bell curve. The farther you go from the peak, the less likely, even though statistically valid, it could be the true value. But the farther you go from that peak, the probability of that number being the estimate declines. So again, 972 is the most likely value based on our survey efforts. Let's take a closer look. This 2022 overwinter estimate does represent a decline from the previous winter's estimate of approximately 1,100 wolves in this pack occupied range. We saw decreases in abundance in most of the 6 zones. We did see decreased average pack size in all of the zones from the previous winter. Whereas one thing that changed very little is the distribution of wolves on the landscape, as well as the estimated number of packs on the landscape. And those changes are very consistent with what we observed during previous wolf seasons in the state back in 2012, 13, and 14. Again, I'll repeat it. Decreases in abundance, but little change in the distribution of wolves or the number of packs across the state. The map on the right, that displays the model result showing estimated wolf density across the state. And I wouldn't focus so much on the absolute values of the density there, but you know, it's illustrating that the darker colors, higher wolf densities in the state. And you can see zone 1 up in the northwest where we're standing right now, some of the highest densities. Zone 2, relatively high density as well. You can see it transitions to the south in some of the zone 3 and 4, you know, more patchy distribution. And zone 5, the central forest component, you can see it there as well. Last slide. Maybe. There we go. So kind of to put this into perspective, this graph shows our wolf population counts, our abundance estimates going back to the year 2000. That's the red line on top. The blue line is the estimated number of packs over that same time frame. So I kind of alluded to it. You know, we had a change in methodology in 2020, and that's visible here. 2020 and back is what are known as minimum counts, a different methodology. So it's not directly comparable to the 3 most recent. You'll see the credible intervals that surround those 3 most recent estimates based from the occupancy model. Same thing with the blue line, minimum counts versus the model generated estimates. So this overwinter estimate that I just shared, 972, is the first estimate following that 2021 wolf season. It does represent a population decline from the last 2 estimates. However, as I mentioned, and you can see it in the blue line, the estimated total number of packs on the landscape changed very little. This is, you know, reflected in that decreased average pack size that we observed, although distribution and number of packs stayed this very similar to the previous year. And again, that's a pattern we observed during or following previous wolf seasons. And so to kind of wrap it up, despite that observed decline in wolf population abundance, there are several biological indicators that you know continue to indicate that the Wisconsin wolf population is healthy, biologically secure in the state. You know, indicators again, such as the distribution, the number of packs, continue to point to a secure population. As we go forward, you know, the wolf program will continue this track record of extensive monitoring every winter and year round for that matter. And the department is committed to maintaining a sustainable and healthy wolf population in the state into the future. Last thing I'll mention is we have a full, very detailed report that shares all of the details on the monitoring, the methodology, as well as conflict information, law enforcement efforts, et cetera. That report is being finalized here in the next couple of days, and we'll post it to the website for the public very shortly. And with that, I can entertain any questions.
Any questions, board members? Bill.
This is probably a really dumb question. I'm known for them. With the wolf being largely nocturnal, you don't use any trail cams in your count?
No, that's a very good question. So props. No. Not specifically in the model yet. That is something that we continue to look at. So this occupancy model approach is rather flexible through time. It just takes time to develop it. One way that we do incorporate camera data right now is going back to, I shared that first map of where we allocate tracking effort. So for example, if there's a block that we didn't track last year because there's no evidence of wolves in it, but this year somebody shares with us, whether it be the Snapshot Wisconsin program or you send me a photograph that clearly shows multiple wolves pack activity, that triggers that block then to be surveyed that following year and several more years. So that's one of the key ways that we use those public observations, is to help us make sure that we're tracking those areas of the state that have pack associated wolves.
Okay, then next question, go back to, I think it was the last slide. or the last, whatever you call it. It's up, maybe it's up. Yeah, there it is. There, those lines on the last 3 years. You mentioned something about 95% accuracy. Is that within those lines?
Correct.
So any number within the range of those lines would be, you would have a 95% accuracy?
I'll correct it and I'll restate it. We're 95% sure that the true estimate lies between those two lines. And the closer you get to the center, that's the idea of the bell curve. The closer you get to the center, the more likely it is.
Is that higher than 95% in the center?
No, it's the center is the most likely value.
But anywhere in that range, it would be 95% accurate.
Maybe I'll put it this way. If you go to the very bottom, there's probably a single digit percentage chance that that is the true value. Whereas in the middle, it's the most likely value.
Okay. And final question. Go back to the February hunt. The board received a lot of criticism for that. You're aware of that. And one of the criticisms was the time of the year was going to decimate, you know, the reproduction process. There was one particular area where there were way more wolves harvested in that February hunt. And I'm just wondering, did that area show a dramatic decrease in wolf numbers?
Yeah, it's a good question. We haven't done a complete analysis looking at, you know, changes in occupancy between the last 2 years related to where harvest occurred. I think there's a lot of assumptions that need to be made in that. But what we did see again is even in areas where there was concentrated harvest, you know, across those zones, we still see wolf packs occupying generally the same areas. Was there local changes? Absolutely could be. You know, the model's not designed to detect whether there was wolves on this side of the road.
Preliminary indications are that it did not decimate the wolf numbers in that particular area.
I think that's correct. I don't think there's any particular.
I just, you know, the board took a lot of heat over that, and I just wanted to clear the air on that the sky didn't fall entirely with that February hunt.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
folks can interpret the change in the population as they see fit, but we feel good about this result. You know, you can imply different things, what impacts really occurred from the February season, but these dynamics are pretty complex. Not only is there harvest going on, but obviously immigration. There's wolves doing all the things that wolves do, and so I would caution, you know, reading too much into a single data point between a couple of years.
Randy, is there a likelihood that females bearing pups were killed in that hunt?
Yes, I would say almost certainly.
I'm just saying it different.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that February season was unprecedented in Wisconsin, in that we had over 200 wolves taken end of February. It's the peak breeding season. You know, but we collected data on sex and estimated age. You know, not every wolf is a female, obviously. And even among the females, not all of them are of adult age or breeding status in the pack. And so again, it's a complicated dynamic to try to, you know, disentangle what was going on. Was there reproductive impacts? I would say most likely. You know, to try to estimate exactly what it was and estimate the actual impact, very difficult. But again, we have an estimate that's based in good data, good methodology, and we feel good about where we are, you know, going forward.
It's a healthy population.
All indications are so.
Doug. A couple of points. First of all, most species that we manage by harvesting are either pregnant and or just got pregnant, such as whitetail. Walleyes in the spring are spawning and they're harvested by the public. So
it's like, you'll keep talking as if the pups are there and they would have been there in the fall when they're possibly, so that whole argument can be discussed. But my question to you is, first of all, Randy, is tell your team, thank you for explaining an extremely complex methodology of science in a layman's terms. You've done an excellent job.
Thank you.
And maybe my question doesn't pertain to what your task was, which was to identify the population. But my question is this. A lot of talk about carrying capacity, biological, social. That's the big buzz right now. Does your tracking, surveying at all with the geological and geographical points that you have in the state address that question at all? The carrying capacity biological that the state of Wisconsin should or could. Now we know, and I know a couple of statement of facts, the wolf range has changed. It's moving, it's spread out. It was just northern Wisconsin for years. Now it's all the way down to Monroe County.
Mhm.
So with that trajectory, have you guys studied that trajectory of how the wolf range is changing? Have you have any opinion on carrying capacity, or is that something else for another discussion?
Yeah. So
Another
this,
dumb question.
the model is not designed to estimate carrying capacity.
Okay.
It's a moving target, right? Biologically, it depends on prey and habitat. Socially, there's a whole can of worms there.
Right.
There are other ways to assess those. This is not that way. However, you can look at a couple of indications from this methodology, right? And I talked about them, the number of packs, the distribution of packs, and the number of wolves, the estimated number of wolves. And I mean, you can kind of see, even in recent years, we're still fluctuating, around 1,000 wolves in that ballpark. There's a harvest season in there, which kind of conflates things a little bit, but indications seem to be that we're approaching some sort of biological carrying capacity. That's reflected also geographically with the distribution expanding to where it's at today, but not seemingly expanding out much further than that.
Well, as long as, I guess my question to you is, over the next 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, while the courts figure out whether we have a hunt or not, does it help you define that question? Because if it continues to rise and there's no plateau, that tells you that the state can handle more wolves. True or
That would be an
false?
indication. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, is this like a unique opportunity? I'm not putting the aspect of not being able to hunt wolves in Wisconsin, leave it off the table. I'm just saying, as a biologist, does your team go, wow, this is a unique opportunity. We're going to have, just like the years before, when, from 2000 up to when the first hunt started, we got another opportunity to see exactly how high this will go. Now, that doesn't address the social aspect.
Sure.
With the other testimony, but as a biologist, for what can Wisconsin handle?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, from the years 2015 to 2020, they were federally protected. No harvest season, very limited human caused mortality other than illegal.
Right.
And we did not see the population just skyrocket. We saw growth rates slowing up until 2020, obviously an increase in 2020. So I think there's an indication there. If you look at kind of decade by decade growth rates, we saw 20% growth rates in some of the early years. Then we got down to 10, and now we're down to 5%, something like that. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but the point is the population growth rates year after year were slowing down as we approached 2020. Similarly, again, the distribution of wolves, where wolf packs are out there. And I think sometimes thinking about wolf packs is probably the more appropriate way to think about this. The number of wolves is a function of wolf packs out there. And so again, we continue to see packs generally occupying the same space that they do, the last few years. We don't see continued expansion necessarily. I think those are both indications that we're approaching that. There was some modeling work done, a specific research project aimed at trying to estimate what that top end biological carrying capacity was. And I think they came into the ballpark of 1,200 some wolves in the state of Wisconsin. And that's an estimate, it's a projection, but it seems, in the ballpark of where we're at in reality as well.
Do you think in reality, this task that's the department puts on your team can define that as if let's say wolf hunting opens back up and the big gnawing question is, what's the carrying capacity biologically? Do you think your team can help define that as this graph grows?
More years would help. Yeah. More years would help.
Okay. Anyway, complex science presented well.
Thank you.
Bill,
Livestock depredation. Any information on whether that depredation occurs as a result of lone wolves or pack wolves?
It's a good question. I think both can occur.
But do you record? Do you keep a record of?
Yeah. When Wildlife Services, so I'll just kind of mention, regardless of listing status, the department and Wildlife Services are actively engaged in a wolf conflict program. Okay, when a producer has wolf conflict, they call Wildlife Services, boots on the ground out to check it out. To not only verify if wolves, but one of the things they record is how many wolves might be involved. And so, yes, there's some data there. I don't know what the breakdown would be off the top of my head.
Where is it 50% are lone wolves or 25% or?
I would say most are probably pack associated. And I'm saying that based on the fact
most are probably, you don't know.
Most are probably pack related. And I'm basing that on the fact that a lot of our conflict occurs in the same general area year after year.
Where there are packs.
Exactly.
That we know of, but it's been changing as the presentations go. So, anyone?
any other questions? Then I'll start. Okay, I had a couple for you here. We state that is the Wisconsin gray wolf population. I think that's very confusing to the public. We should call that the gray wolf pack population because that still does not include lone wolves, does it?
It depends how you define a lone wolf, but yes, there is a segment of the population that are non-pack associated wolves. And we're careful to use that terminology of pack associated wolves and pack occupied range.
So the number of actual wolves on the landscape could be higher if you added those lone wolves to that population.
Yeah, I think that's
so. I do want the public to be aware of that. And so in the future, maybe we could do those graphs to say the pack population of wolves. Second, I don't know how you come up with your confidence intervals, but if the model is the model, how can the confidence intervals vary from year to year as shown in your graph? Can you explain that?
Yes, it comes back to that three-part equation. Again, I'll try to do this simply, I guess. We might have more collars one year than the next year. If we had every wolf in the state collared, we would have very precise estimates of home range size. If we have half of them, there's more variability there. Same thing with tracking effort. If we have more surveys conducted, we have more data, and that effectively shrinks that uncertainty that surrounds that. So the final uncertainty captured by those bars can vary depending on the amount of data collected, how many surveys are run, how many radio collars are out there. All of those different inputs can vary, resulting in those changes. The interpretation of them remains the same. We're still 95% sure, statistically speaking, that the true value is there, but more data usually shrinks those down to a point.
So, but your other graph showed we had more data.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, I think reflected in those, we've shrunk them down the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Then next question is, I do want to clear some air that to this day we continue to get beat up in the press over. When you guys came to us with a quota for that February season, you came to this board with a quota of 200 wolves. That is what this board passed. But the media accounts of it where we overshot the quota by 100% and all that. The quota that you brought to us was 200 wolves. Is that correct?
There's a biological quota of 200 wolves.
Right. And we killed 218. So I just wanted to clear the air on that because there's been a lot of misreporting about that and confusing the term quota with tags. And So we did attain the biological quota that was recommended by the department.
I mean, there's another component there, of course, of federal treaty rights that have to come into play.
Right,
and
but that's
where-
not the quota. The quota, that's the harvest. The quota is the quota. That's how many you see that need to be harvested to manage the species. And that's where a lot of this confusion came in. So we didn't overshoot the quota, and that was the biological number that was recommended by the department to manage the wolf population. Is that correct?
The 200 is the biological quota that was
Okay.
recommended and then continued through the
Right.
treaty process to where
Okay.
the state had a quota of 119.
Thanks.
You can't separate the two.
Well,
Law says.
You
To your
can,
point.
because
No, to your point, the hunt was the hunt. The law requires that the tribe have a stake in that. That's all. That's all we're saying. Yes, you're correct. But there's also a piece that should be discussed as well.
Right, but that's
Biologically,
relative
yep,
to
you
the-
got
to
it.
the
Yep,
harvest.
Yep, you
Okay.
got it.
It's
Okay,
not-
wait. And I want to jump on this second, because if that's the case, as biologists for the wolf population in Wisconsin, if that was the case, that we were only going to shoot 100, I would assume the following year you come back with even more, because biologically you want to have a harvest of 200. And if we know, and or the treaty exercises does not exercise their rights to do that, then I would, as a biologist, go, oh boy, we didn't get our biological goal. We better increase it next year. Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm glad I got that cleared up. Do the depredation, other metrics out there support that decline in population, like depredation, car kills? Are they tracking on that same graph as your population estimate?
That's a complicated answer. Conflict is down. Yes. Vehicle collisions, I just actually pulled the numbers. We average something like 20 vehicle collisions that we know, and we try to record everyone that we know, but we know we're not getting every single one. We're up to 17 this year. It's right in line with where it has been traditionally. The reason I say it's a complicated answer is particularly the conflict part. The drop in conflict that we've observed this year, almost 40% less than last year. But I would attribute most of that to the delisted status of wolves, wildlife services going site specific and removing wolves on some of these areas, as I mentioned, that have continual year after year problems. They removed a number of those wolves and we've seen improvements because of that. I would not attribute it much to overall abundance decline.
Okay, but you're showing the population declining the 2 years prior. And were they tracking the same way those 2 years prior? Or was depredation and that type of stuff increasing during those 2 years the population declined?
I'm going to think for a second. I don't recall exact levels of conflict over the last couple of years. It's definitely declined this year. Again, I think as a result of those site-specific controls. Our dog conflict over the last couple of years, and traditionally, is really variable because there's a human behavior component there just as much as there's any wolf component there. Livestock, there's a similar human component there as well. But I don't think I would tie those two together. I don't think I would say conflict has been declining or increasing very closely with this graph. In the earlier years, yes. Going back to the early 2000s, as the wolf population expanded, both in distribution and abundance, those conflicts did increase alongside of it. But I think in more recent years, it has just continued to fluctuate based on where we have wolves, those wolf behaviors, as well as then human behavior, both in improvements in preventing conflict with non-lethal techniques, putting up fences, et cetera, as well as on the dog side, again, human behavior.
Okay, and then one last question. You mentioned that the pack size has declined. Do you know exactly what we changed it from? Was it at 4 and now it's 3.8, or do you know that number that we used? Because every formula out there has a what I call the fudge number. And you can change that number very slightly and it has a tremendous impact. So that number has to be supported pretty strong with some good solid data.
Yeah.
How much has it changed?
The statewide pack size average was around 3.8 last year, and it's around 3.2 this year. Now that's a statewide average. In the north, zone 1, where we're standing right now, I think it's like 4.1 average pack size. Down in the south, it's less than 3, it's 2.8-ish. And so the magnitude of that change is very similar to what we saw following previous wolf seasons as well. So, I mean, very general terms, we lost less than 1 wolf per pack, but again, that's a statewide average. There's variability. We estimate pack size in each zone. I should point that out. So I'm talking about a statewide 3.8 down to about 3.2, consistent with the past, but the changes within each zone, I don't have it off the top of my head.
And then those varying pack sizes are calculated for each zone and then added up to get your final number. Or are you using that one number?
The individual zones, we generate a average pack size estimate for each zone based on those track counts.
Okay.
That helps us in the model inform zone specific estimates. So I think I shared.
Right. So do you estimate a population for each zone then and add them together?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Using those variable pack sizes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Sharon.
Again, thank you for this report. Very
Yes,
helpful.
very.
My question really is with zone 4, 5, and 6, where I think we're seeing an expansion of wolves. Is that what it's showing?
I think some local expansion over the years, there can be wolf packs that establish in a pocket of habitat. They might be there for a few years and blink out. They might stick around. I think we're going to continue to see that going forward. But wide scale, large expansion into those zones, I don't think we're going to see that. I think largely where we're at today on a, large scale is where we're going to see wolf distribution kind of top out, if you will. But again, that doesn't mean individual packs can't split and become 2 packs or move across the road, those type of local changes.
So just to clarify again, what I'm hearing is that you don't expect the wolves to keep moving towards the south or to become more concentrated in those 4, 5, and 6 zones.
Yes. With the caveat that, individual wolves can and do show up anywhere in the state. They, especially this time of year, individual wolves, they trek out, if you will, from those packs and they go out looking to establish new territory. That's the lone wolf component that we mentioned. And so we've had wolves in every county of the state, but generally speaking, they're moving along, looking for a partner and new territory. So we'll continue to see individual wolves show up from time to time, almost anywhere. But wolf packs require, obviously a little different component. And I think we have kind of approached where we'll find them in the last few years.
So a follow-up question. To Sharon's, so I'll just call it this, the nature of the beast is to go where the food is. I think we've seen a lot of that happen with the deer herd in the state. The deer herd they haven't really migrated, but they've migrated to the southern part of the state because that's where the food is. Now, wolf being the apex of predators, if they're out of food or short of food in the North Woods, wouldn't they do the same thing? Migrate to where the food is?
It's a good question. I mean, most of the research that's been done over the last how many decades shows that food availability, deer in our case, largely drives wolf abundance at a local scale, right? And so we do see this play out with our territory sizes. Some of our collared packs in the southern part of the state, much higher wolf or deer density, excuse me, generally have smaller territory sizes. There's more deer within that space, and wolves are very territorial for that reason. They're going to defend their essentially food resource.
Yeah.
If we saw let's say we had a tough winter in the north, that's going to potentially reduce that deer density and potentially stress those wolves. There might be more fighting among territorial neighbors. They might shift. They most definitely will shift their space use. But especially in today's situation where we largely have wolf packs abutted up to each other, there's not a lot of extra space to grow or expand. I don't think it's ever been demonstrated where a pack would, pick up and move south. Dispersals definitely could. Again, that those individual wolves trekking out, they could do so. And I'm sure that has driven some of what we've seen in the state. But again, even under mostly years of federal protection, reduced harvest, all those things, we still haven't seen wolf packs establish in some of these other areas with tremendously high deer numbers. And so that to me is an indication that I wouldn't bet on it occurring anytime soon.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Randy. That
Thank you.
was very informative. Appreciate it. All right. All right, Department Secretaries Matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you get a chance to see whether it's air, water, forestry, fisheries, wildlife, natural history, the human dimensions of all of this. And you can see the scientists that work for the department able to talk at length in a venue like this, of course, with the Natural Resources Board, but also explain these same type of science-based rational reasons why we do what we do. And let alone be able to talk this out, take it out to the public and seek their input as well, with whether it's a wolf plan or air monitoring. And so we are a science-based organization, but we really pay attention to those human dimensions. And you saw that earlier this morning when Duke was concerned about his water levels and what's in that water. And we were able to reconcile and read between the lines that he was concerned. And so our responsibility is to listen to those concerns and act accordingly. We're not machines. We are human individuals that understand those human dynamics. And I'm proud of the staff today and how they deliver on that message about protecting the value-added proposition of our air, our water, and our natural resources. With that, Mr. Chair, retirement recognitions to Paul R. Stones in forestry, Stearns for 25 years.
Do we have a motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Paul.
Motion carries.
You folks should have already received the real estate transactions. And item number 2 is an update on the DNR state budget request. Are we prepared to hear from Paul Newman?
Yep. Good morning, members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
On those real estate transactions, I really like the bat habitat protection that landowner piece parcel about. That's awesome.
People are doing wonderful things. Thank you for that. I'll pass it on.
Good
Stand
morning.
by for Paul Newman.
Good morning, members of the board. This is Paul Newman with the
Yes.
Bureau of Management Budget, and you can hear me okay?
Yes.
That was a hint.
Of course.
Well, of course.
All right.
In
All
Department
right,
of Secretary Matters, Sandy Nas, if you're available. It's good to see you. Okay. Yep. Moving up here.
I heard that yesterday.
It's my people up.
This is a great place to live, and I'm really happy to see everybody make the trek up here, and really appreciated the opportunity to show off. I didn't have anything to do with the planning of our tour yesterday, but I do want to talk about that, and thanks, James, wherever you are, for setting that up, because you showed off some really good things in an area where there's a lot happening even now. So I do want to cover kind of start there from a our trip yesterday took the board to and staff visiting places like Saxon Harbor, Copper Falls State Park, Career Park, at the Superfund site, and then the Ashland Ordock site. And I wanted to focus on our trip from a watershed perspective. And I don't know if it's still morning or not, but yeah, we are. So just looking at from a watershed, I'm a soil scientist. I've worked with soil and water most of my career in one way or another. Right now, it's a lot of teaching and some side jobs in the summer through my my consulting business. But I just want to focus on that a little bit and then kind of bring it home at the end here. But at Saxon Harbor, we saw the devastating effects of flooding that plagued the area in 2016 and again in 2018. We heard the Iron County foresters say that by the time the 2018 flood hit, that they knew what to do. But it took that learning that lesson from 2016 out of necessity to be able to protect life, property, natural resources, and provide a safe harbor, and continue that work in 2018. It really brought to attention the need to do a better job of assessing the risk of water movement through a watershed before events occur. And I don't know that we've always done a good job of that. And I say we, I was a former county conservationist for the soil and water departments in Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron counties for about 12 years. And so I worked with watershed management and looked at how water moves across the land and how what we do impacts water. I can't say that we ever looked at conservation as a risk assessment. In the late 30s, conservation districts were put into place to work with landowners on wind and water erosion efforts to protect topsoil and water quality as a result of environmental disaster caused by poor land use practices during the Dust Bowl. Again, reacting to environmental disaster that affected property and natural resources. It wasn't until Black Sunday in March of 1935 that it was elevated to a national problem when the dust storm finally came to Washington, D.C. People could feel it, they could see it, they could experience it firsthand and understand what was enough. They'd had enough and we need to do a better job. Through the Red Clay Project, which I kind of hit the tail end of when I moved up here, which started in the 1950s, this area has tried to reduce red clay entering tributaries to Lake Superior every time it rains. We saw that chocolate milk yesterday at Saxon Harbor as the wind pushed waves into the break wall. While there's not a lot of clay entering our water, while there is a lot of clay entering our water, you may not be aware the amount of sand that travels through our systems, our stream systems, and the capacity to change how those areas transmit water. Our land use practices don't help. Some of those include draining wetlands, even those that the general public doesn't recognize as wetlands, too much mature young forest by watershed, and then how we manage road ditches for safety can also contribute by getting water to streams faster. And there's other things too, but we need to do a better job. Toward that end, I recently saw that the Wisconsin Emergency Management's mitigation staff assisted in a workshop in Ashland County that focused on risk assessment models and the Marengo River watershed. The Marengo is a subwatershed of the Bad River watershed. We drove through both of those yesterday as we headed through Odana over to Saxon and then down to the to Copper Falls and then came up Highway 13. We drove directly through the Marengo River. I think James pointed out a couple of spots where the Highway 13 had washed out. And that was a result of things happening in that watershed, water coming off too fast and the torrential rains that we had. Two components to their discussions I think are worth noting. They were assessing fieldwork and modeling focused on fluvial erosion hazards and culvert conditions. So again, looking at how the streams are changing and then how we're conveying water from one place to another. And then looking at flood modeling that improves methodology from the 1978 FEMA National Flood Insurance Program maps, updating our flood maps based on these torrential rains that we're getting. We've had 2 since 2016, and there were some before that in Duluth that severely impacted that area up there. Same result, we saw that milky color, same things happening. We had a lot of sand that are changing those the way those streams convey water. Why does this matter? The connection has been made. What we do on the land impacts life, first of all, life, property, and natural resources. We learned that the hard way. Using these tools to assess risk will help us move forward in efforts to protect natural resources as people start to make that connection. We never did that when we first started doing our watershed projects. I don't believe that was part of our thought process. It was more about the resource and not necessarily protecting human life. So bringing it back to our field trip yesterday, we drove through the watershed that contributed to the flooding that impacted Saxon Harbor, the community of Odana on the Bad River Reservation, and several communities that were cut off from services during these flood events. And just to make that connection really clear, what we do at Copper Falls impacts the Kakagan sloughs on the Bad River Reservation. That's where their tribe's food is, the food that grows on water, wild rice. So people depend on government and tribal officials to keep us safe, protect property, and to make sure our natural resources are here for our children, the future 7 generations down. The risk assessment exercise, I was really pleased to see that. It's a great way to make those connections for people so that our emergency management, our conservation professionals are working together. I had I don't know if it was a luxury, but I was down in the driftless area during one of those flood events. And it was completely scary to me to feel like I was going to be boxed in and not be able to get out. So that was I think 2015, I want to say. I don't remember the date, but yeah, there have. So to have that in my own backyard was I don't think as scary because we have many different routes around, but there it was just, you felt very boxed in. Doing that process of risk assessment, I think is pretty important. And I encourage the department to be very involved with partners as we continue these risk assessments throughout Wisconsin. So thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Staff, I think we have Paul Newman available for the budget. Comment. Go ahead.
Good morning, members of the board.
Oh, Terry Bay's up first.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just to be clear, Paul Newman's in the room with me. Paul's going to be first.
Yes.
Good morning, members of the board. This is Paul Newman, and I am here to present highlights of the agency's 2023-25 agency operating requests. And just by definition, as a reminder, this covers the next biennium, 24-month period that begins July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2025. So I'd like to pivot to the first slide here, which should be titled Biennial Budget Timeline. I'm looking here to see if that is up or not. I'm assuming it is. This is just a reminder from a timeline perspective. We can go to the operating budget, which is the previous agenda item, 7B2A. That's still the capital budget. We pivot to the previous slide deck for operating budget.
This is Paul.
This is Paul Newman with the Bureau of Management and Budget. Do we have that slide deck available? Or should I just continue?
Send you.
Presentation verbally.
Yeah, okay, should I just go ahead?
Let's go to Terry Bay.
Okay. All right.
Good morning, members of the board. Chairman Kazmierski, Secretary Cole. This is Terry Bay with Facilities and Lands, Bureau Director for Facilities and Lands. Good morning. I am wearing a suit and tie, and I have a little less hair than the last time you saw me. Good morning. I'm presenting the capital budget. The budget provides the department the funding necessary for maintaining and improving public access and public recreation facilities on DNR-owned lands. This request supports the entire DNR portfolio of capital assets, including our facilities, roadways, trails, bridges, and water control structures. This budget request recommends a total of $226.5 million for capital development projects to address the growing backlog of deferred maintenance issues and provide suitable and safe infrastructure at our department properties. I'm on slide 2, and that was the one that was originally up. The development budget is a continuous process that is a cooperative prioritization of projects with our department programs. Projects are selected for inclusion into the capital budget by prioritizing projects into these 4 categories that is on the screen, listed in the order of importance. Priority A are projects addressing human health, life safety, security, and compliance concerns or issues. Priority B projects address the highest need repair and maintenance projects in the department. Priority C are enhancement projects, enhancement to our existing facilities and infrastructure. And priority D projects are new construction projects. Slide 3, please. Next slide, please. I'll just be moving on. Thank you very much. Priority A projects addressing health, life safety, security, and compliance concerns and address initiatives such as clean water include improving water and wastewater systems, replacement of existing vault toilets, and improved dump stations. Additional projects in this category of priority A involve improve public access to DNR properties and ensure safe access to all of our visitors. Life safety improvements at our hatcheries are included in here. And finally, this category of projects address compliance issues with some of the impound structures, such as dams, that go beyond routine repair or maintenance. Priority B projects are repair and maintenance projects. These projects are directed at protecting our existing assets, such as our facilities or infrastructure, or help maintaining our existing services. This by far is the largest portion of the capital budget request. The types of projects that fall within this category are boat launches, public access and repairs to improve public access, road and bridge repairs, hatchery repairs, and general facility repairs. This also includes facility replacement projects. These projects include ranger stations, toilet shower buildings, and some public entrance facilities. Priority C projects outline projects that are enhancements to existing facilities, and these enhancements include relocation of trails, increasing trails, relocation of roads, extensions to existing trails, and additional expansion of facilities. And then finally, priority D projects are new construction projects that expand the current asset portfolio. In this budget, there are new fire ranger stations, brand new trails, brand new roads, and new shelters at our facilities. Slide 4, please. Thank you. This capital budget request represents 482 projects. Those projects are listed in the highest of priorities as we just went through. Of the projects, these are the general categories. There are 22 projects that are categorized as major projects, projects by the Department of Administration that outline projects that are over $1 million or add more than 500 square feet to a facility. The next 30 projects are considered minor projects, and those have a value between 300,000 and $1 million. And finally, the small projects, which represent the largest volume of projects, 432 projects, have a value of 50,000 to 300,000. State funds requested for this capital development project is $218.7 million in state funds requested. There's an additional $7.8 million in not state funds for a total capital budget request of $226.5 million. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes how the total capital budget funding request fits within the priority categories outlined. As you can see here, after addressing health and safety priorities, the department focuses on protecting and maintaining our current facilities and infrastructure assets in the repair and maintenance category. Next slide, please. Just want to quickly wrapping up on the presentation. I want to go through some projects and some project photos, and I'm glad the slides are working. Projects that were completed in the last biennial period that the board had seen 1 and 2 biennial ago in those project requests. The first one, arguably, is the most popular with our park visitors, is the fully accessible Eagle Tower at Peninsula State Park. This observation tower was completed and opened to the public in the spring of 2021. As part of the 2018 capital budget, the board supported the need for a program to begin replacing aging ranger stations across the state. Some of those initial stations are coming online over the last 2 years. Here are images of Black River Falls and the Cornell Ranger stations in the bottom left-hand side of that slide. And then pictured to the right is the new Southeastern Regional Headquarters in Milwaukee that opened in the summer of 2021. And the board had its first meeting in August of that summer. Next slide, please. Some additional capital projects completed during the biennial period include expansion of Merrick State Park boat launch, addition of accessible fishing piers. This one that is shown is at Copper Falls, which you may have seen yesterday on your tour. Numerous bridge replacement projects and repairs, keep our trails open to the public, and of course, the vault toilet replacement initiative. 2 other projects on this slide that came online are the new CWD processing center up in Poynette, Wisconsin, and the beautiful Horicon Marsh 4-season picnic shelter overlooking the marsh. Next slide, please. And finally, I just want to mention we have plenty of infrastructure to improve to keep our outdoor recreational opportunities open to the public. Next slide. With that is Paul and I are open to any questions on that presentation.
I would like for you to schedule.
We have no audio on this end.
So Paul, we will just have you call each board member, walk them through our O&M budget submission one-on-one. They do have the budget in their packets, both the O&M and the capital budget.
Got that message received.
Thank you.
Will do.
An easy process.
Right.
And one of the things as a former state employee to emphasize is that this is the first step in a very long way. That,
correct.
Agencies submit to the Department of Administration, goes on to the governor's office, goes back and forth.
Yes.
The legislature sees it at some point next spring, correct?
Correct.
Oh, I got it. Yay.
This-
And I was going through the capital budget and there's a column for source of this funding. And there is nothing on any of those.
Okay.
Projects on the source for the funding. So would like that question answered too. All right.
So Kaz has a question for Terry Bay in terms of source funding per line item in the capital budget. And so make sure Terry contacts the chair accordingly.
Are you just missing tab 4's inserts? Because mine was mixed up. Mine didn't come with the inside the binder.
Well, I didn't get anything.
Oh,
Okay.
Did it.
we'll
So
reconcile that.
maybe it's a.
It's good. Next item. And that concludes, wait a minute. The Terry.
Thank you. One request I'd make of the department is that they send this information out sooner to us. I did receive my binder on the capital improvement on Thursday.
What was your weekend?
That's where I spent most of it. And as the secretary has suggested over the last several years, that those of us that work need more help. Because to try to understand the budget is very challenging. But with all that being said, I had 4 pages of questions for Terry and Paul. And so on Monday, we spent time together going over those questions. It's very evident that they're working hard on this process. The department's working hard on this process. Our people that run the various programs spend a great deal of time on this. And it's tough. It's a very, very challenging process. But I would like to point out that on my binder tab 3, this is a stark example of what Bill Bruins and I have been talking about for several years about where we put our money and why are we buying more property. Our capital improvement budget went from 88,099,801 in the 21-23 budget to $226,547. Now, I was not a math major, but that's about 3 times as much. Which tells us in walking through all the different projects that these folks are working on. And many of them, as Terry B mentioned, are maintenance, fixing up stuff. Well, when we go from 88 million to 226 million, that's got to be a big red flag to tell us we've been deferring stuff for a long time.
Hallelujah.
yes.
You got it.
And it's important, if we're going to have properties, that we take care of them. We need to be stewards of those properties. Or get rid of the properties that we're not taking care of. Because if we're not taking care of them, are they safe for the public to be using? Big question mark. Also, all of a sudden, we're going to get a proposal to spend $1 million here, $1 million there, 5 million here for new properties. Why the heck are we buying new properties when we can't take care of the stuff we got? Now, I understand that there's different sources of money. But maybe sooner or later, we have to send a message to somebody to say, wait a second. If we have millions of dollars in the stewardship fund to buy new properties, why don't we take some of that money and use it to take care of our existing properties first before we go and buy new stuff? Now, if you ran your business or your household like we're running this, over the years, not last year, not the year before, but years, you'd be challenged to even walk in your front door because your house might fall apart. So I commend the department in taking a look at all this stuff that needs to be done. But I also challenge the department to not fall in the trap of not taking care of stuff. But I also like us to be able to get this material and information at least a week before our meeting.
Got it.
Because I think it's
You never got
essential.
it.
Well, I specifically said I wasn't going to vote on this or look at this unless I got the information. So that's how I got it on Thursday.
Mr. Chair,
So
Terry got me all agitated.
Oh,
I did.
I sit between.
what's wrong with you?
I do have I want to wave a little warning flag, and maybe there is no cause for concern, but with all the balls in the air that we have right now with our economy, I want to turn our attention to the Environmental Improvement Fund. We have just in that fund to date nearly $3 billion borrowed, and we're proposing to borrow another $372 million. And my concern is, as we run this program, as we loan money to local municipalities for these improvements in how they're dealing with their wastewater, are we going to be affected by the changing interest rates? Has anybody asked that question? I just throwing it out there. So
Thank you for that. We'll get you an answer.
Yeah, I trust that has been, to give you a comparison on the capital budget. Staff shared with me, and again, I very much appreciate the opportunity of having a discussion with Terry and Paul, that there's a 15% contingency fund baked into any stuff that's new. And there's also a $40 million uptick to cover all the increase in costs that anybody that's been involved in any construction this past year, it was an eye opener. When a 2x4 goes from $1 to $4.50 to $10, that's a problem. Now we've seen some stabilization of that, but it's not back to the $1. So every one of these programs are going to be more costly, and with interest rates going, fixed rate, 30-year fixed rate last year at this time was about 2.85, 2.875. Today it's 6.5. That is a heck of an increase for anybody to be able to absorb. And we're going to see the same in bonding. So that's what's going to happen. So the staff's really going to be challenged to say, okay, let's focus on the essential ones first and go through our priority list. But I mean, this is a very, very challenging time. And again, I applaud staff to looking at all this and the amount of time that it takes to put a budget together like this. But it just would be nice for us to be able to see it sooner.
Got it. That concludes our budget presentation.
That what that was? Let's go, Tess.
You have no more items, Mr.
No.
Secretary? Okay.
Four matters.
All right. Well, one thing that we're going to do before board members matters, we need to get it on the record today, the meeting dates for the 2023 year.
Move as presented.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Discussion, can we invite to the southwestern part of the state?
Well,
on
this is just for
field
the
trips?
dates of the meetings.
I know, but,
We will determine those now, and I really want to get to the southwestern part too. So,
okay. Thank you. Yes, I
okay,
agree.
now we can go on to board members matters.
Gonna vote.
Can we vote?
on the dates.
Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. So now, board members matters, Bill.
Yeah, just, I'm concerned about the CDAC 2.0 process. And I requested an agenda item to just give certainty to the process. And I'd like to see that addressed in the near future. Okay.
I mean, Ebony and Ivory here are going to work together and making sure that we
But I
take a look.
Yeah,
and-
I'd like to have the board solidly behind by either voting yes or no.
We can't take action, but we can certainly agree or disagree verbally that that's a good idea. So I say it's a good idea.
I concur.
I concur as well. Sharon and I had that conversation some time ago because she needed 2.0.
Okay,
Okay.
So
Is that good enough? for
is
comment?
action going to be taken by the department to move forward on that? Or is it something I got to ramrod my way through?
Yes. You and I,
Okay,
Chair,
okay,
and then we will seek advice from others.
okay.
so that's okay with me, Mr. Secretary, unless if I don't see progress. Then I'll keep bugging you.
You never vote.
All right. Sharon,
I have two comments.
okay,
One, the joy of being in the North Woods. I think it's so important. And I feel that my stewardship has improved so much by being here and the tours. So I'm very grateful. The second is to underscore or again, be aware that when you look at a budget that makes that much difference, I think that it is so important as we go forward to think about our stewardship and the maintenance of our property. You're looking at knowing me as a former Girl Scout leader. If you defer that maintenance, you pay for it so much later on. So a stewardship budget, I look forward to really speaking to bringing the maintenance and the quality in line with the work that the DNR is doing. Thank you, Tina.
I've distributed copies of an article from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel with their permission. It's copyrighted. And I'd like the department to present at our next board meeting a full report regarding the recent dumping of over 700 million gallons of wastewater in Lake Michigan, one of our greatest natural resources. This was done by the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. Questions? Has an investigation commenced, and what are the results? Has the department ordered MMSD to correct any deficiencies in its system? Have any penalties been assessed against MMSD? And has a referral been sent to the Justice Department regarding this? So I'd like a report by the next board meeting, please. Thank you.
Marcy.
Thank you. A couple items. I too appreciate the tour yesterday and between the two of you, if I could make 3 quick requests that we don't lose from that tour. At the first one, we heard loud and clear from Saxon Harbor that they're still awaiting the FEMA reimbursement and that financial burden of a loan is on Iron County. And I think from our experience in the southwest part of the state, it takes multiple inquiries to get things moving with FEMA. And I just feel like the interagency, the elected officials, whether the board writes a letter or what have you, just show our support because we know that's a burden on a very rural county. So that was our first stop. At Copper Falls, we had side discussions about the staffing issues for state parks, similar to what happened this summer in the discussion, and that we continue to look at our LTEs and our employees because they are such an asset. They were so kind yesterday. Their visitor numbers are up and their staffing numbers are down. We have to take care of an important asset like that staff. The Ashland mayor at the third stop had some very specific requests, and I hope those don't go unheard either. Whether it be the service center reopening, assistance with the kayak launch, or anything else, the partnerships that have evolved in Ashland are just, it's amazing to see that progress yesterday. It was so nice to see. And they have a plan, they have very engaged members, and we can play an important part in that. So those were from the tour. The next one's much tougher. The Wisconsin State Journal this morning had an article that just absolutely blew me away. It is in regards to our board, and as our tribal members started today, respect is a two-way street. And the texts that were revealed in that article are not funny. I was so honored to be asked to serve on this board. I've always worked in a bipartisan fashion. I went through the vetting process. I got approved by the Senate. How politics has gotten this involved in such an incredible asset for Wisconsin to have citizens with direct input into policymaking, into budgets. We were talking yesterday. Every person in Wisconsin is affected by what the DNR does. And we have this incredible opportunity. So, Dr. Breen, we brought it up last August, and I'll bring it up again. Your decision is not yours alone. It has a ripple effect. And I used Christine Thomas as the example. She told me to take the high road. I refused press interviews and things like that. But I sure hope you will reconsider and recognize the impact that this has on all of us. There have only been 60 people that have had the opportunity to serve on this board, and you are blocking a very qualified candidate. And the politics that have been brought into this, again, it's just alarming, and it's hard to deal with every aspect of this board because of it.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, point of privilege. This issue is not board business. It should be not discussed at this board meeting.
So I had no chance to respond. All right, never mind, I don't bother responding. But don't believe everything you read, Marcy.
Bill. The item I was planning to report on has been more than adequately covered by our open forum with the citizens on the wake surfing boats and the impacts of those. And I'm glad to see it get visibility, and I'm glad to see action towards. The other thing I want to mention is very sincere thanks to staff for putting this whole thing on. Other people have mentioned it, but today was a great example of the challenges and the difficulty and the logistical challenges of bringing a meeting out in the field, out of Madison, and in particular, like this far out of Madison. And I know there's an awful lot of work that goes into that, and I thank you all very much. I thank James Jacques and his staff for the tour we had yesterday. You can't replace face-to-face, feet on the ground, discussions with key partners, staff, government leaders, citizens about the impacts of the things the department does and the things that we have an influence on. And I think the benefits of that are tremendous. And lastly, despite the workload and the logistics, I think it's something that the board needs to continue to do to make the effort to get out. Most importantly, to be accessible to our citizens. The Zoom technology is wonderful and it saved us a lot, but it doesn't replace face-to-face human interaction with the people that we serve. And yesterday and today has been a big boost. It's been way too long and I'm glad to be back out there.
Amen.
That's it. Thanks.
Nothing at this time.
Well, I have one thing, and that is, I just want to put out a big thanks to James Jacques and his staff. Normally I get a list of names who all the key people were there, but I just want to thank you all. It was a great tour. It's time we got back out in the field and I'm really happy we did that. And then I have to address Marcy's thing there, which is not board business. Marcy, I prefer you not to bring that kind of thing forward under board members' matters, because it is not pertinent to the responsibilities of this board. So,
I disagree.
well,
Yeah,
the
so
Supreme
we'd like
Court
to
didn't.
Invite everybody to Shawano next board
Right.
meeting. And we'll have a great opportunity to get together and see what's going on in the Northeast. Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to Shawano. Do I have a motion?
East of Wausau.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are done.
Jerry.
Motion carried.